Monday night, the B-Space Committee will hear from HMFH architects who have been asked to be consultants in examining options for additional classrooms, and their report will cover the possibility of adding to existing school sites. That meeting is Monday, July 29th, and will begin at 5:30 p.m. Just a reminder, the Brookline Farmers Market is every Thursday and will be open this week again. And a new item, there will be pop-up vendors at number 2 Brookline Place in Brookline Village beginning Saturday, August 3rd from noon to 5 p.m. I understand there will be a variety of different products on display, arts and crafts and things to eat. Anyway, more information should become available, but they will have their first pop-up event on Saturday, August 3rd. And just for everybody's information, there will be no Selectmen's meeting next Tuesday, July 31st. Any other announcements from members?
Oh, I just wanted to say that our Committee on Diversity, Equal Employment Opportunity, and Affirmative Action is having another meeting tomorrow night. We've had some very interesting meetings, and last week went over some of the case law in that area. And this week, I think we are going to, that was 2 weeks ago that we met. Yeah. This week, I think we're going to be looking at several affirmative action and equal employment policies that have been suggested but not yet taken up by this board, and perhaps look at other models as well. So it's been a learning experience so far, and we're moving along. We should definitely be completing our work, I think, well before the spring town meeting.
Well, we're definitely very interested in hearing when you're ready to give us an update with some suggestions about the direction you're going in. We'd love to do that, and obviously keep us posted as things develop. Selectman Wyszynski.
I'll mention that the Selectmen's Committee on Solar
panels.
Okay, I was struggling for the word.
Readiness.
Has voted a recommended check sheet to be used by the town in all renovations, roof replacements, and new buildings. The committee will be presenting those recommendations to hopefully a joint meeting of the Building Commission and this board sometime in September or October. So there'll be more to come on that.
Good. Glad to hear it. Selectman Binka, you have anything to add?
I will pass.
Okay. Then I'm going to ask the town administrator to give us a little bit of an update. We have received a notice from Mass Development, which is the agency that will ultimately make a recommendation for approval for a 40B at Hancock Village. And do you want to bring us up to date on that?
But just, yes, Madam Chairman, in terms of the schedule, so the Mass Development's process, or the state process for a 40B site eligibility application, provides a local community 30 days upon which to comment. And the original date that we would have had to provide comments was August 12th. We felt that that was very difficult because of the summer schedule, and so many people are away from the community, so we requested an extension, and to date they were only willing to give us till August 30th. So that will, if that sticks, that will require the board to modify its schedule, I think, this summer towards the end of August, and if you want to have a public hearing or whatever. So if you think that August 30th, we could ask again, but at this point, I think if we were going to get consent, we'd have to probably get the developer's consent as well.
Selectman Baker?
It was my understanding that we had asked for a longer date.
Yes.
Yep.
And
August 30th was what we...
this is what they've given us.
Okay.
We requested longer, and we did say that we thought this was a very difficult time of year for there to be public discussion, and although we will hold a public hearing in the middle of August is not the best time to try to
Obviously.
have many interested parties and residents able to attend, and we felt very strongly that it should be extended until September, and what they've responded to us is August 30th.
But
So
this,
we could protest, I suppose.
this still gives us the option to go back to them, or to go to the developer.
Yeah.
And get a later date.
We could certainly approach mass development, at the same time approach the applicant and just say that in everyone's interest, we'd rather have a period that would take us after Labor Day when we'd have a better opportunity for public participation. But-
Would you like me to pursue that?
I certainly would.
Members? All right, well then, so yes, you can take it as the board's request that you ask for an additional extension. And make it clear that our goal here is to allow the maximum public participation.
Yeah, even if we could get till mid-September, I think that
Right.
would give us that opportunity to.
But past Labor Day is the important thing.
yeah.
August 30th doesn't help very much. Okay, moving along, we have two people signed up for public comment. Ms. Ames?
Thank you. Good evening. Mariela Ames, member of the Human Relations Commission and town meeting member. It has been 3 years that we have been talking about diversity for the town workforce. We have had 3 annual reports on diversity, but the commitment from the top hasn't been there. A fact that is undeniable in showing our lack of diversity is the number 0 at department head level positions. Out of our 25 department heads, not one is Black, Latino, or Asian. In February, your board decided to fill the vacancy of the Planning and Community Development Director position. The process of filling that position has not been encouraging. First, a number of advocates for diversity, including Bobby Nabel, made suggestions to revise the job requirements in light of this department's responsibility for low-income communities. The department receives federal funding precisely to address the needs of low-income communities. If any of the suggestions were taken, it was not obvious, at least on the town website advertising the position. Second, the search committee put together to select the new director had no minority representation. It included 5 white men and 2 white women. It included members of various boards and commissions, but there were no members of the commission charged with advancing diversity, the Human Relations Commission. You, as a board, are in charge of making this appointment, and I would imagine that you could have input in the composition of the search committee or informal group, if you prefer to call it that, that group set up by Mr. Kleckner to advise him on the selection. You did not do anything to make the search group racially diverse. This isn't just about advocating for a racially diverse department head. Social science has shown that racially diverse groups make better decisions than non-diverse groups, particularly where race may be an issue. Here are 3 best practices. 1, diversity on the search committee. 2, diversity value in the job announcement and at the institutional level. 3, strong advocate for diversity on the committee. We are way behind the curve here. This search was an opportunity to act on your stated commitment to diversity. Nevertheless, your actions show something quite different, just as they do when you push to one side 3 persons of color who have applied to the Human Relations Commission, the commission tasked with dealing with issues of race relations and diversity. We should not have to continually remind you that your stated commitment to diversity needs to be realized in actions, not just words. Thank you.
Mr. Farlow?
Thank you. My name is Frank Farlow. I'm a town meeting member from Precinct 4 and speaking as co-chair of Brookline PACS. Madam Chair, I hope you'll allow me 3.5 minutes. My comments concern the current inability of the Human Relations Commission to meet and conduct business due to the repeated lack of a quorum. The Attorney General's website contains an item titled Open Meeting Law FAQ, Calculation of Quorum and Majority. It explains that a quorum is required for a public body to discuss public business, not just to make decisions by vote, but simply to discuss public business. Since public business would include even such mundane matters as the agenda and the date of the next meeting, the repeated lack of a quorum is obviously severely crippling to the functioning of the Commission. The FAQ also states that temporary vacancies have no effect on the quorum. That is, although the Commission currently contains only 10 of its 15 statutory members, its quorum is still 8. As a result, although the Commission normally meets on a monthly basis, I believe it has not been able to obtain a quorum for half a year now. In a letter to the tab editor of early May, PAC stated that there were 4 vacant positions on the Commission at that time, and that we were aware of at least 3 well-qualified applicants awaiting notification from the board. We concluded that the, quote, commission is the product of a town bylaw that states, members of said commission shall be appointed by the selectmen. It would seem an appropriate time for some appointments, unquote. In its report on Articles 9 and 10 in town meeting later that month, the Committee on Town Organization and Structure also weighed in. Quote, CTO&S urges the selectmen to begin the process of soliciting new members to the HRYR Commission with the objective of bringing the Commission to effective and full strength as soon as practically possible. Almost 3 months have passed since our letter was published. No one has been appointed, and I'm told that there are now 5 vacancies. I've heard that a selectman said recently that one reason for postponing appointments was that depending on the recommendations of the board's diversity study committee, you might decide that the commission needs more lawyers. In the first place, 2 of the current 10 members of the commission are lawyers, but more important, to maintain its flexibility regarding the lawyer consideration, the board could simply appoint for a 1-year term, stating in the notification that when the recommendation of its study committee is acted on by town meeting next year, it might be necessary for the board to alter its criteria for commission appointments and reappointments. One quick final point that also bears heavily on the ability of the commission to obtain a quorum. When the board is considering reappointment of an incumbent, it's important for it to take into account the incumbent's recent attendance record. Some current incumbents rarely attend meetings. The bylaw could be changed to provide that when the term of an incumbent expires, the chair of the commission shall provide to the selectmen a record of the incumbent's attendance, which shall be taken into consideration regarding his or her reappointment. Thank you.
And I would just like to go on the record saying that I misspoke previously about the definition of a quorum, having understood what is typical under normal parliamentary rules, which is not exactly the language that's in the open meeting law, which you just heard quoted. So we're going to move now to our miscellaneous calendar, and I would like to move as quickly as possible through this. So if members of the board have questions that you would like to ask and you want to hold one of these items, speak up. If not, if we can go through them by consent, that would get us closer to our long interviews agenda.
I definitely want to hear about A.
Okay? We'll hold the ones you want to hold. That's fine. B and A are very similar, just for the record. I think if you ask about A, you're going to get questions answered for B too.
Okay.
Anything else? just A and B?
Yeah.
Okay,
C, which is, I would just comment that C, which is the largest amount, is a Chapter 90 project, so that is the state fund.
right. Okay, Mr. Messick, tell us about A and B. Both of these are with regard to consulting contracts. Well, not entirely.
I can tell you, I'm particularly interested in the new school site-wide assessment.
The site-wide assessment is to assist the B-Space through their difficult task of siting a new school.
Okay, so that, this contract is not being let with them saying what site that would be, or this
The way
is
the
just to
building
help the
commission-
B-Space committee work through that?
It can be done in two ways, but right now, we have 4 specific sites to look at in accordance with the direction of our building commission. But we can look at 4 generic sites. It really, the way it can be written is we can look at 4 sites or the 4 specific sites.
Okay, what I'm trying to get at is, so what are the 4 sites? I'm trying to ask what,
Existing sites.
The
They-
Baldwin School, the Lynch Rec Center, the Old Lincoln School, and Amory Park. As I
And
understand-
The other contract, you might as well combine them both, Ray, because she wants to hear how many sites are being reviewed.
For the high school, I believe, I'd have to,
And
I
the
thought Amory
elementary
Park was
schools,
off the table, is that?
it was not off the table at the time the consulting contract was
put together.
put together.
Okay,
And it's B-Space who made that. I'm not even sure it's a final decision, so I would not want you to think it drives this. What was requested was for there to be additional studies of possible sites, and that included the ones that you just heard about, and it also includes elementary schools excluding Devotion and Runkle, which is
Okay.
to say Driscoll, Pierce, Lawrence, Baker.
There's 6 schools.
Yeah, I'm blanking now. Driscoll, Pierce,
But for the
Lawrence,
high
Baker.
school-
Lawrence, Lincoln.
Lincoln
Heath.
and Heath, right. Everybody except Devotion and Runkle.
Okay, my concern just is we're not going to spend a lot of time and money looking at Amory Park if that's already
The
not-
assessment will report on whatever they discovered as limiting conditions at Amory Park, because that's still important for a final decision. And it is a wetland, just for the record. That's among other things that were being reviewed.
Betsy?
Yep.
Or
Sorry.
Ray? So the contract that is included in A, the new school site-wide assessment, is the contract, it's not just the contract that looks, within the confines of that contract, it's not just Baldwin, Lynch, Amory, and so forth, but it's also the existing schools.
That's in this.
No, no,
contract.
it's,
That's a
that's
difference in this
in
one.
B. The first one is only
You have to look
looking
at them all
at
together.
potential sites for a new school.
Well, B
In
doesn't.
B,
B
although it
is
says-
devotion school and high school concept
those are
study.
both extensions of existing contracts, but the extensions asked for assessment of possible additions to existing K through 8 sites, and I think also a possible addition at the high school.
So, for example, with the Devotion School,
Okay.
because the Devotion School project could be modified if we did things to other existing schools, that's where
Right.
that was put.
Okay, all right.
If you read the
all right.
proposals, they're quite clear about
All
what
right,
sites
good.
were being considered, but the goal was to get an assessment of all of the identified potential sites that anybody could think of at the time these contracts were being prepared.
That is correct. And the new high school sites were Lars Anderson and the Baldwin School, which were identified at the time for the high school.
So that's the extension on the high school concept
That's
study.
that's
Right.
the way, it was built, so for the high school, we did the internal look, and then we wanted to look at the outside siting of a high school, other than renovating the new school, siting a new school.
Good.
And then for the devotion, again, because these other schools do affect the devotion school, we were looking at the 6 existing schools and how we might be able to add space to those particular schools as well.
Okay, good. Thank you.
The goal was to get as much information about as many currently under, sites that were currently under town control.
Thank you.
Other questions? Then are we ready to move approval of the contracts under A and B? If that's clear, then I will move that we approve and execute the following contracts. New school site-wide assessment with HMFH Architects, Baker School replacement of fire alarm panel with System Electrical Services, Chelsea, Mass., and to have amendments to the Devotion School concept study with HMFH Architects, and an amendment to the high school concept study with HMFH Architects. And finally, a town school masonry study is an amendment to the CBI Consulting, Inc. contract. All in favor, please say aye. Selectman Daley?
Aye.
Selectman Benka?
Aye.
Selectman Waschinsky?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. And if there are no questions on items C, D, E, F, and F, then I will move that we approve and execute a Chapter 90 project reimbursement request and environmental punch list in the amount of $489,665 for contract number PW14-14, mill and overlay of Clyde Street. I move that we approve extra work order number 1 in the amount of $6,000 for work to be performed by Highway Safety Systems in connection with contract number PW12-03. I move that we approve extra work order number 2 in the amount of $4,200 for work to be performed by Waste Management of Massachusetts in connection with contract number PW10-12. I move that we approve change order number 3 in the amount of $19,465.74 for work to be performed by PGOCO and Sons in connection with contract number PW11-13. All in favor, please say aye. Selectman Daley?
Aye.
Selectman Benka?
Aye.
Selectman Waschinsky?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. And that takes care of the miscellaneous items on the calendar. Next would be a question, the introduction of our candidate for Director of Planning and Community Development.
All right, move to the podium.
Yes, and the town administrator will make the introduction.
Thank you, Madam Chairman and members of the board. Might I ask Allison Steinfeld to come up and sit here on the front row with me. I am pleased this evening to recommend for your consideration the appointment of Allison C. Steinfeld as the Director of Planning and Community Development Director, effective next Monday of July 29th. And Ms. Steinfeld is a career professional in the planning and community development profession, and has been in Massachusetts her whole career. She has a master's degree in city and regional planning from the Harvard University, and her career to date has been involved in highly responsible planning positions in the city of Newton, the city of Waltham, and most recently as a director in the town of Framingham, which is, as you know, despite its size, a town form of government like Brookline. Interestingly, Allison is also a native of Brookline and a graduate of Brookline High School. She has all of the requisite experience that we were looking for in our search, including zoning, regulation, affordable housing, economic development, historic and neighborhood preservation, and CDBG and grant administration. And I decided to recommend Allison for your consideration this evening on a number of factors, but mostly familiarity and experience with Massachusetts zoning and land use law, her understanding of the Massachusetts local government process and culture, her unique connection to Brookline, and her personality and fit with the Brookline stakeholder groups, the staff, and the public. We have obviously done all of the background and reference checking, and I'm very pleased this evening to introduce Allison Steinfeld to you She is here if you want to ask her any questions or anything, but it's my distinct pleasure to recommend her for your consideration this evening. Sandra DeBow, our Human Resources Director, is also here if you have any specific questions about the process.
Thank you, Mr. Kleckner. Ms. Steinfeld, would you like to come to the microphone? I don't want to put you on the spot, but it would be nice to hear from you a little bit about your interest in being the Director of Planning and Community Development in Brookline.
Certainly. Thank you. Thank you, Town Administrator. I obviously have a very strong commitment to Brookline, having grown up here, long tradition of Brookline in my family. I'm very interested in bringing my planning skills to Brookline. It's actually very exciting. I know there are a lot of issues that need to be addressed, and I welcome the opportunity to apply my skills, to return to Brookline and have an impact on this town that I genuinely love.
We know that you, in your experience in the city of Newton, actually were also there at the same time as our former town administrator, Rich Kelleher. So I'm just because we had very long and in Brookline, a very wonderful relationship with Mr. Kelleher. It's nice to know that there's someone who also worked with him in your capacity, I gather, in the Brookline Planning Department. Is that right? Oh, sorry,
Right.
Newton.
Yes,
Newton,
I
sorry.
believe I worked with Rich for probably 8 years, also with Steve Cirillo.
Oh, right.
So,
So you'll be, at least Steve is still with us, even though Rich has moved on.
correct.
Right.
And it was quite a pleasure working for Rich and with Steve as well.
So are there questions from members of the board? Comments? Selectman Benka.
Yeah, let me just make a comment, just so that the people who might be here and people who might be viewing this think that we're not interested or not curious. Each member of the board has had an opportunity to meet with Ms. Steinfeld before this meeting today, and I certainly enjoyed our time together and her responses to my questions and so forth. So we have had that opportunity to have an extensive discussion, and I wanted to note that.
Selectman Daley?
Yeah, I welcome Ms. Steinfeld, and I'm happy we found such a well-qualified candidate, but I actually have a question for Ms. DeBow, if you don't mind. Since the issue was raised, I would just like you to tell us a little bit about your efforts to reach out and recruitment for this position.
So our efforts to outreach have been the way that they have for most. We go to the traditional places that you place ads, but we also do the professional ones as well. We placed something at the Commonwealth Compact, which we have been talking about extensively.
Right, the Commonwealth Compact, for those who might not know, is a sort of regional organization of a number of cities and towns and large institutions have joined to try to reach out to minority candidates.
Right, and I don't have the list in front of me, because I wasn't expecting this question, but there were a couple others that we reached out to. I believe the Bay State Banner we advertised in as well. And I can tell you that by looking at the associations and the affiliations that various candidates have, we met our goal of reaching a diversified audience, and so without getting into confidential information, that's all.
Yeah, no, I don't want you to do that. But I have one other question, because I know that's a fairly big department and an important department for the town, and we have a number of people who work in there who are highly qualified with advanced degrees and so forth themselves. And so if you can just say a word about when you write job descriptions and give the classifications for different jobs. I think there were some suggestions along the line that this should be kind of changed. And it's actually, I think, a more involved process than most people realize.
Yes, it is. writing a job description, we do not write them when we are posting a job. The job descriptions are written well in advance of the position. There's a whole process in place of looking, and we recently had a consultant review all the department head pay plan, of which this was part of. And so not only do we look at external comparison with regard to pay and qualifications of other municipalities that are similar, but we also look at the internal equity with regard to experience and background within our own departments and across all the pay plans and pay schedules that we have. So the job descriptions, really, it's a very complicated process where we look at not only who the individual, what their responsibilities are, the type of people that they have to interact with, the types of, if they make mistakes in their jobs, the liability that's exposed to in the town, but the level of knowledge that they're required and the level of supervision. This in particular is a unique position in that it does manage and supervise a lot of individuals that are highly skilled and highly degreed. And so certainly, but I can say across the board, all our department heads, for the most part, have to have advanced degrees or some sort of advanced experience. All our job descriptions require us to look at not only education, but years of supervisory experience and other experience in the field. Some positions, more so than others, we require municipal experience as well. So it really depends, job description by job description, but as a whole, they are graded, and that's how we put them in our plans, consistently, so that all the positions in one grade should have very similar educational experience and other experiences. So,
And for instance, a department head position would involve more qualifications than the people that are going to
Yes,
work for
yes.
them in that department.
yes, and Brookline as a whole, this is a town where people generally do not cut their teeth as a first job. Usually they've had this similar job in a smaller community. And that's.
Or larger in this case.
Or larger.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's, I mean, I could go on for hours.
Yeah, well, thank you. Thank you very much.
Selectman Waschinsky?
Yeah, I'll just mention, I met with Ms. Seinfeld and had a very lovely discussion. And, this is a very important job that really can have a big impact on the community, and we have very engaged citizenry, especially when it comes to projects and potential zoning changes. So I'm sure you're going to meet them all. Good luck.
And we ought to give you, as a welcoming gift, a copy of our zoning bylaw, which will keep you busy. But I'm sure you'll have plenty of help from department members. I know we are renowned for having a lengthy and detailed zoning bylaw, which we are very proud of, actually.
Well, I don't know. Personally, I think at some point, if you wanted to suggest some simplifications, I, for one, would be willing to listen.
Okay, all right. Well, maybe that would come forward, too. That wouldn't be a bad thing. In any case, we are now in a position to vote an appointment. Therefore, I will move that we appoint as our new Director of Planning and Community Development, Allison C. Steinfeld. All in favor, please say aye. Selectman Daley?
Aye.
Selectman Benka?
Aye.
Selectman Waschinsky?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Welcome to Brookline. Welcome back to Brookline. I guess we should say you also went to Runkle. So you obviously probably have a lot of interesting things that you know from your youth here and new things to learn in your new role as Director of Planning and Community Development. We look forward to working with you. Welcome to Brookline.
Madam Chair, if I could also welcome Allison officially to the town, and we are very excited. It's obviously an opportunity for us to welcome Allison, but I would hate to let this opportunity go without giving a real heartfelt thank you to Kara Bruton, who served in a very lengthy capacity as our acting director, and not only held the seat, but made some very significant contributions. And I'll have more to say about that in the future with appropriate recognition, but I didn't want tonight to go by without formally and publicly thanking Kara for her efforts.
Yeah, I think we should say not just Kara, but a number of members of that department have stepped up to parcel out the extra work as they were a little shorthanded, so they did a good job.
Thank you.
And we have, I know it'll be a great transition because I think the staff people who are there are very knowledgeable and very willing to help get you up to speed, teach you our zoning bylaw, and other little details like that. But I think it will be a comfortable transition for you and for the department as well. So we look forward to it. Okay.
Let me just add,
Yep.
the zoning bylaw committee will be meeting on August 12th, and we look forward to meeting you.
Right.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
And I gather you're starting next week, is that right? Immediately, okay, very good. We'll see you next week. All right, moving along, the next item is Chief Ford and some appointments. I think you have 8
Good evening.
qualified? Yes.
Yes, we do. Well, as you're aware, I came before the board quite a few months ago to seek authority to fill vacant positions. And we came back to you with 10 candidates, again, asking for you to give them conditional offer of employment, pending certain requirements that they had to meet. At this point, we have 8 of those candidates that have successfully passed all the requirements that both civil service and the town of Brookline require of their candidates. So the 8 candidates that we have left are Cormac Dowling, Mike Pierre-Louis, Carl North, Connor Monahan, Devin Ream, Zachary White, Matthew Shatkin, and Brian Mulkern. So I'm here to ask that we move forward and offer them their employment, and we're ready to start the class very soon. And I'm sure they're excited about their new careers that are ahead of them.
And will this class be based in Brookline?
Yes, it will.
Okay.
August 5th, we have several other communities involved. Once again, Newton, I think Belmont, maybe Chelsea, Dedham, quite a few communities.
Good group, okay. Questions for the chief? No, I think we are very pleased that you have 8 qualified candidates, and therefore, I move that we offer conditional employment to the following individuals: Cormac Dowling, Mike Pierre-Louis, Carl Knopf, Connor Monahan, Devin Ream, Zachary White, Matthew Shatkin, and Brian Mulkern. All in favor, please say aye. Selectman Daley?
Aye.
Selectman Benka?
Aye.
Selectman Waschinsky?
Aye.
Chair votes aye.
And
Okay.
Thank you very much.
I note that there are a number of young men in the audience. I assume that you are the candidates.
Those are the majority, if you guys would stand up anyway and be seen. And they're ready to come to work.
All right, well,
Okay.
we
Welcome.
wish you well, and good luck going through the next phase. Yeah, we'll see you again. We expect we'll see you all again.
With pinning, I think, and
Right.
Okay.
in a more formal process. But welcome to Brookline, and thank you very much.
Thank
Good
you.
luck.
Thanks, Chief.
Okay. Moving on, we now have interviews scheduled for the Override Study Committee. And we're going to go down our alphabetical list.
May I make a
Yep.
comment before we
Oh,
begin?
you certainly may.
We have an extraordinary number of very well-qualified applicants for the Override Study Committee, and it really is, as I said, on the the last day, the 9th,
The 9th,
when we
right.
did interviews. It is an embarrassment of riches. I just wanted to alert people who are here that I will be asking a question of everybody that you can start thinking a little bit about, and that is, if you were a member of the committee, what particular issue or issues might you want to carve out that would particularly fit your interests and your expertise, and that would be relevant to the charge of the committee? I think we are going to be probably working in subcommittees or task forces, and I wanted to give applicants the opportunity to identify issues that they might feel would be particularly of interest and within their particular expertise. So I will be asking that question of everybody. Just want you to be aware of that.
And maybe Selectman Benka, I think with the last group, you told them a little bit about the time commitment you're expecting from people, and you should give them some of the
Yes, thank you
ground
very
rules.
much. We, this board will be interviewing, this is the second of 3 groups of applicants. This board will be interviewing again on August 6th, and the plan is that we will make our appointments on August 13th. I would hope that we could have a brief introductory meeting in August, perhaps during the week of August 18th. But I think August for many people is a difficult month. That has traditionally been the case, and we will begin in earnest in September when we really dive into this process. I've already asked for some information, and that information is being provided by the schools, so we will have something of a head start, I hope. And we'll be working from September through the deadline of March 1st with respect to any recommendation for an override for the fiscal year 15 budget. I think the schedule will be meeting at least once every 2 weeks as a full committee, conceivably more often during that September through February period. And I do expect that members of the committee will be asked and expected to work on smaller groups on a task force basis on a variety of questions that will then come back to the full committee. So it will be, I think, quite an intense schedule between now and March 1st. That focus will be on any override that might be needed for the fiscal year 15 budget. And then after that, actually during that period and continuing after that, we will be looking at longer-term issues, particularly longer-term capital issues, programmatic issues and so forth that might have an impact on the town's budget and on the need for overrides or debt exclusions in the future. So I think a 2-step process, but certainly intense work through March 1st, and I think very serious work after that as well.
Right. Okay. Well, given that rather daunting description, first candidate on our list is Clifford Brown. Mr. Brown?
Good evening. Thank you for having me this evening.
So just
can you hear
our
me?
first general question always is, tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're interested.
Sure. I'm a Brookline resident, been here for about 18 years. Professionally, I'm a finance person, a background in investment banking, investment management, corporate finance, strategic financial planning. Numbers are what I'm all about professionally. We have 3 children. One of our children just graduated Brookline High School. The other 2 children are still in the Brookline public school systems. Our experience with the public schools includes the Lynch Center, Runkle, Lawrence, Old Lincoln, and the high school. So we have a very broad range of exposure to the schools in town and to a number of the programs, regular education and the SPED program. As a community member, I have been on the Runkle Site Council, including a stint as its vice chair. I was on the principal search committee for the new principal at Runkle. I'm a town meeting member from Precinct 14, who I will say has been buffeted the last week and a half with requests from constituents at Old Lincoln, Runkle, Heath, prospective Baldwin site. So the politics of this situation are something that I've already begun to deal with and expect to have to deal with in the future. I'm on the advisory committee and am a member of the Administration and Finance Subcommittee of the Advisory Committee. I am a member of the Economic Development Advisory Board, the Zoning Bylaw Committee. I'm EDAB's representative on the Brookline Chamber of Commerce, where I recently headed up the Strategic Planning Committee there, and I'm on the Government Committee for the Chamber as well. Why am I here? I think the schools are critical. You know, our kids went to public school. I'm a public school graduate myself, although not from Brookline. I think the schools are an important economic driver in the town. They help maintain our property values. And I think we need to do whatever we can to ensure that we not just maintain them, but enhance them in a responsible way. And I have faith that B-Space will submit one or more options that will give the town the opportunity to do that. Having said that, I do think the town owes the taxpayers a transparent process that, you know, verifies the assumptions behind the projections that are used to make decisions, and that asks hard questions so that ultimately we can put forth a plan, because this group, as I see it, is a group that's coming to ask people for money and putting together a plan to accomplish the goals that we have. But it needs to be fair and equitable, and it needs to be extraordinarily transparent. You know, as a finance person, you know that numbers can be made to say anything you want them to say. And that's something that I don't want to happen. I want this process to be open, transparent, and intellectually honest, so that when we go to the taxpayers, we're truly able to explain to them what we're doing, why we're doing it, and why we're not doing something else, which I think is just as important. Selectman Benka, to answer your question, which I happened to hear watching a little bit last time, I think it is very important that we look at the projections, understand the demographics, why things are occurring the way they're occurring. Do we think it's a bubble, or do we think it's a trend? I have some of my own perspectives on that already, but I do think that we need to do a better job of understanding it than what I think currently the metrics are able to tell us. I think I can help with the understanding the impact of potential options on the taxpayers, the town's bonding capacity, which I think is an important consideration here long-term, as well as looking for possible cost savings and non-override revenue sources, which I think that we as a town government owe it to the constituents to make sure that we are exploring any opportunity to save money, to close loopholes, to, if there are places where we're subsidizing, to make sure we rationalize those subsidies and tell people why that it's important to continue making them. So, thank you.
Okay, questions? Has your question
Yes.
been asked and answered? Okay. Then Selectman Daley, you have a
Yeah,
question?
well, you're kind of a glutton for punishment, Cliff. It's a wonder you have any time to work with all those town committees you're on.
Yeah, so is that a question?
No.
I think she's asking, do you have time for another group of
I
meetings?
think that's a fair, I expected that question. So, you know, I'm fortunate that I run my own business. It's a small business. I run it from my house. I have a very short commute up the stairs. I have a very flexible schedule. I have a relatively small number of clients, and I'm able to generally project very well for long periods of time what their needs are, which is why I think I'm able to do the work that I have done. I do not foresee a problem fitting this work into that schedule at all, frankly. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here.
I didn't mean to preempt you,
Yeah, no,
Selectman
well,
Daley.
usually I ask about your familiarity with the schools, but obviously you've got that, you've answered that question as well, so I'll pass it along.
Nancy asked my process questions already, and then I also know, having served with you on the advisory committee, that the other question I usually ask is, are you comfortable being out front in the public? And I know that, having served with you, you are, so I won't ask you that question. The question Selectman Goldstein, who isn't here, asks, and I don't know if I would ask it quite the same way that he does, and I've been struggling to
I have thought of some language, if you want some help.
Why don't you, the question he asked, what biases do you come into this process with? I'll just ask it the same.
Well, actually, because I had the same thought, Selectman Goldstein is away this week, and so we definitely want to put his question forward. But just to elaborate a little bit on what Selectman Wyszynski was saying, preconceptions and actually commitments, have you already signed up on any one of the various petitions that's floating around with regard to solutions to B-Space?
I have not.
Okay.
What I have done, though, is, because as I mentioned, I'm getting emails from people, as I know other town meeting members are. Some are addressed broadly to town meeting members in a couple of precincts, and some have just come directly to me. I've gotten some phone calls. And I've listened, and what has struck me is the amount of disinformation that's out there, which I'm concerned about, which gets back to the whole issue of open process and dissemination of information and making sure that people really have a view as to the data as soon as possible. So what I've actually tried to do is to reach out where I think things haven't quite made sense to me, to someone who's on B-Space and said, reality check, what can you tell me about this? And then gone back to those constituents. I do think at the same time that it's important for the various people that I represent to have a sense of what's going on, so I'm also suggesting to people, I didn't mention them on the board of the Fisher Hill Association as well, that the Fisher Hill Association should disseminate information to its members. Not everyone in town has a kid at the schools, yet everyone in town is going to be impacted by this. And so it's just important for people who may not be as on top of it to just get some data. But when you give out that data, you need to be as accurate as possible. I have not signed a petition. I have told people that I think it's really important that everyone, and certainly someone who's on a town meeting member and on the advisory committee, much less on this committee, maintain an open mind, because that's important. And that would be my bias, is that we have open minds and that we have a process that is intellectually pure, intellectually honest, to come to the best solution for the town.
Okay. Any follow-up questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We don't know exactly, but we think we're going to make appointments on August 13th. Right. Okay, the next person is Thomas Downs. Mr. Downs, are you present? So you've had a chance to hear and presumably know the answers to the questions already.
Yes, I know. I wish I did.
But anyway, welcome, and please tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're interested.
Happy to. Professionally, I am a professor of economics at Tufts University. My research area is education finance, has been for years. and education finance very much from a policy perspective, thinking about all aspects, property tax, other revenue sources, and that's extended across a number of states. I've done a lot of work in the last decade or so looking at Massachusetts, provision financing, but I've also done work California, Vermont, all, to be honest, from a very academic perspective, but much of my work has also been designed to be accessible to policymakers. It's something I think it's important. And so I'm always thinking about the policy aspects as well. I think one nice thing about much of the work, particularly work I'm doing recently, is that it's gotten me to think about how to finance schools in ways that are not just property tax. But I'll come back to that in answering Selectman Benka's question. As far as Brookline, I have had 2 children go through school at Devotion. I have been a member of the Devotion Site Council. I was involved in the principal selection process when Principal Llewellyn was chosen. I was on it started as Gifted in Town and is now ECS, Parent Advisory Committee, eventually co-chair of that committee, and have been involved in other smaller ways in the Devotion and the broader Brookline school community. So I think I have a perspective, maybe not as deep a perspective as some, of what's going on in all of the schools, less so the high school, but certainly across many of the elementary schools. And I think that perspective will hopefully merge nicely with the background I have, thinking about the financing of schools broadly writ, and the financing of schools and provision of schooling in Massachusetts. I also think, and I think it's critical, that, and I have not gotten involved in the discussion boards, I have not signed any of the petitions, but I've heard much about them. And what is apparent, I think what Mr. Brown said earlier is exactly right. There's an enormous amount of misinformation out there. And I think there's been a lot of going well back in time, making decisions about where we should go without necessarily having in place all the relevant information. One advantage I have, because I do this day in, day out, is that I've got a pretty good knowledge of what we know about the effects of different policies and how those policies affect the broad range of individuals who reside in a community like Brookline's, because we're not just talking about taxing people who are sending their kids to the Brookline schools. The taxes are going to be affecting everyone if we do pass an override. And it's critical to think about the effects those taxes have on people who are less able to pay them, the effects those taxes are going to have on the property tax base in Brookline, and how we have to balance that off against the risk that if the Brookline schools don't continue to be as good as they are, we're also going to see declines in property values. And I know that firsthand. I've done research on the links between school quality and property values. So I'm coming into this with a variety of different perspectives. I'm also coming in having, I mentioned my service in Brookline. I was also one of the co-chairs of the governor of, it was not a Readiness Commission committee, it was a Readiness Commission subcommittee on long-range school financing. And in that role, we thought about not just the financing pieces, but the efficiency pieces. And I've been pleased to see that over time, many of the things that we pushed for, such as getting as many communities as possible into the state health system, so that, which Brookline did early, to great advantage, that many of these suggested efficiencies have begun to be taken advantage of. And so I've got a little bit of perspective there. To be honest, I think unfortunately, the research base is pretty limited on what you can do to increase efficiencies, but at least what research base there is out there, I'm pretty familiar with. So that's how I come into this.
Okay. Selectman Benker, you've been.
Well, you heard the question earlier, and that is what, and I think you've probably alluded to some of this in your opening comments, but are there particular issues or a particular issue that you would think you would carve out if you were a member of this committee that would really fit your interests and your expertise, and maybe provide a source for another paper down the road?
Well, or a paper that I'm already working on. So one that's very near and dear to my heart is alternative revenue sources. And I'm actually working on a paper now looking at that, how alternative revenue sources have been used or not used nationally. But more generally thinking about what revenue sources are available, and how when you begin to dip into those revenue sources, what are the benefits and the costs of using these alternative revenue sources. I mean, I'm not going to pretend to argue that I think that the kinds of money that are going to be needed will all come from alternative revenue sources. They can't. There's no way that's going to happen. But the more you're able to make use of alternative revenue sources, the less you'll need to raise through an override. And so thinking hard about that is something that I'd really want to push for. And as a result of this research project, I've gotten myself even more deeply immersed into the whole literature on how is it the schools try to finance when faced with serious constraints on the ability to pay for things using property tax revenues.
If I could just follow up on that a little bit, there obviously are different revenue sources that are available if you're making policy on a state level than if you're making policy on a local level.
Absolutely. And,
you know,
and
we are operating in a clearly more constrained environment than happens at the state level. And I'd be curious as to what sort of options you might think would be available.
Well, just to throw out one that I think all of you are probably familiar with, there was some discussion I think more in discussion boards, I don't know how formal it was, about the possibility of charging for full-day kindergarten, which is something the state allows us to do. And I think the proposal, I believe, was floated was for a $1,000 charge for full-day kindergarten, with half-day being free. But by law, we have to provide free half-day kindergarten. I don't know. I don't think that proposal got fleshed out. My gut reaction to the proposal is that a fleshed out proposal of that kind could be a really excellent one. And it would be critical to have something like that being income sensitive, because there's a lot of evidence that there are enormous benefits of full-day kindergarten to low-income kids.
Right.
There's not a heck of a lot of evidence, particularly, and this is where the recent research is particularly instructive. There's not a lot of evidence that there are huge benefits to full-day kindergarten for high-income kids. That most of the benefits tend to go low-income. And so, to be crass, I'd argue that Brookline is providing very expensive daycare to a lot of kids. For that reason, it's worth asking, is this a way we can raise revenues? Now, is that going to be politically popular? My guess is no. But I think the reality is decisions are going to have to be made. This is going to happen at the level of B-Space. It's going to happen at the override, and through the override process. Decisions are going to have to be made that are going to create winners and losers. And they're going to create winners and losers across the whole population of Brookline. And I think you have to think hard about those. And then you're going to have to factor in the political aspects as well. But that's just one that comes to mind immediately that actually, in terms of the possibilities, is probably a pretty good revenue raiser relative to some of the others. Again, I don't want to argue that there's big money out there in fees. There isn't.
Right.
I don't know of a place in the United States that's been able to do a lot with these alternative revenue sources, save for some very small communities that have done tremendous things with private giving.
Well, thank you.
I don't want to cut people off, but unless you have a question that you really need to get answered, we need to move. We have taken a lot of time on 2 individuals, and we've got 10 more.
I'll just ask my schedule question.
Sure.
So what's your schedule look like? Are you going to be able to spend the time necessary?
I am. One of the beauties of being an academic is I got a pretty flexible schedule. And what's more, I work at an institution that values faculty members doing this type of thing. I've had several colleagues who participated in the override study process in Newton. And so I know that this is something that's encouraged by the institution.
I just
Selectman
have,
Daley?
yeah, really quick
Vicki?
one. And I want to say, thank you for applying, as Selectman Benka said at the beginning, where it's amazing the highly qualified people we've had applying. But my question really was, well, first I want to sort of correct one thing when you said something about people making decisions based on inadequate or erroneous information. I think maybe the blogosphere, or if I want to call them that, is maybe
Yes.
thinking
Yeah, no,
decisions are
if
being
I said
made.
decisions, I was stating incorrectly.
I don't think
Not
they've
at
been,
all.
they've been
No
made.
decisions have been made, but there's a lot of discussion that seems to be driven by misinformation.
But my question to you is, clearly you're sort of familiar with our schools and the community, but is a little bit, as you approach things from your academic perspective, if an override is going to have to be sellable to the voters. And I'm wondering if, what your sort of feeling is. You did kind of allude to property values and some other issues that kind of took in the political realities, but I'm
And I'd argue that, yes, I mean, absolutely. Part of the way you're going to have to sell an override is to say, if we don't do this, we're going to run the risk of declining school quality. And that declining school quality is going to affect property values, not just of individuals who send their children to schools, but everybody. I mean, one reality is that people are always surprised by the fact that people who are over 65 are at least as likely to vote for overrides as any other groups, and that's because they care about the property values. So that's part of the way you sell it. Part of the way you sell it is to say, look, we've looked into every possible other way of raising revenues. And we are going to take advantage of anything we can. We've got this gap still left. That's where the override comes in.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
William Geller? Is Mr. Geller here? Okay, then how about Steve Harvey?
Mr. Geller?
Mr. Geller? Oh, Mr. Geller, sorry. Please come to the podium. Welcome. And the first question is, please tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're interested in the Override Study Committee.
Thank you. Well, good evening to the ladies and gentlemen of the Selectmen Committee, and thank you for the opportunity to present my credentials today for consideration to appointment of the Override Study Committee. My name is William Geller. I am a relatively new resident here of Brookline. I've been here for going on 3 years with my family of 4. I have I have 2 lovely daughters. One of them is now entering devotion for kindergarten. And we just come to love Brookline very, very much. I'm very passionate about Brookline and everything that's going on here. We're going to call Brookline our home for a long, long time. One of the reasons I've signed up to be considered for this override committee was because we have made that decision relatively recent about being involved in Brookline a lot more, about calling it our home. And I very much wanted to become involved and do what I can to make Brookline a much, much better place. After understanding some of the issues that are going on with expansion of number of students entering the school system here in Brookline and some of the needs, I understand my background working with a private and nonprofit sectors and having a financial acumen would lend itself very, very well. And I felt that it was not only helpful, but probably my duty to be part of this and to help out residents of Brookline.
Okay. Selectman Binka?
Yeah, I've been asking the same question of all the candidates, really to give you an opportunity to address your particular interests and expertise, and that is, if you were a member of the committee, what particular issue or issues might you want to carve out that would fit your interests and your expertise and that would be relevant to the charge of the committee? And this is bearing in mind the fact that we will probably be working in some sort of task force or subcommittee structure.
Well, in my professional career, exceeding 13 years, I've accumulated a lot of experience in budget and financial management of millions of dollars, and in operations for businesses of international companies, ranging from early-stage startups to medium-sized companies, from both the private and nonprofit. My strengths, which drive my professional successes, include maximizing effectiveness of investments with an eye on a high return on investment, leveraging technology and innovation. I'm very steeped in the technology, and I have an engineering degree. I also have an MBA. And I have, in my decision process, I'm driven by numbers, but remain very, very keenly aware of the significant external factors that really lend itself to, the importance of such a study, which in this case includes demographics and transitory effects on students. I do want to bring a lot of my experience in managing budgets, being financially adept, and also my familiarity with the choosing by advantages methodology, which was presented by Cynthia Zhao not too long ago to the B-Space Committee. And I also have a very strong familiarity with the electrical and building codes through my time with the National Fire Protection Association.
Thank you.
Okay. Selectman Daley?
Yeah, so you said you have a daughter entering school in the fall, is that right?
That's correct, in devotion.
So have you had, are you very familiar with the schools, or not too much, because you're just hitting that stage now?
I've worked very closely with the JCC, which is the Jewish Community Center in Brookline, Brighton. We've sort of been talking for a long time, prepping all the students that eventually leave that school, go on to the different schools. And I've learned about all the different schools in the district, especially when we decided where we wanted to live. And we chose devotion, but we were also very closely involved in the BEAP program, such as BEAP Launch, which my daughter has been in for 2 years now. And I've spent a lot of time with Vicki Milstein, getting to know about the schools, what to expect, and now about what are some of the pressures that the school system is facing.
Selectman Waschinsky?
First, I'll ask the Selectman Goldstein question, perhaps in the Selectman DeWitt way. Are you familiar with any of the B-Space debate, and have you signed on with any of the solutions that seem to be floating on out there?
It's very interesting as you've asked that. I've started following it as soon as some of the conversations have come up. They didn't resonate very soon because I still figure out a lot of the issues that are facing Brookline, but as I saw the debate heat up, I found more and more my interest, and both personally and both for the residents of Brookline, especially the students, that it was a major issue I'd like to find myself involved in. You've asked me what my opinion is or where I would lay my hat. I'm driven by numbers, essentially. I want to do what is the best for the students and for the taxpayers of this town. And a study like this will be what drives a lot of the decisions. So I remain sort of off to the side with an open mind, trying to get to the best decision for everybody.
And then what's your schedule look like going into the fall and the spring?
It's open. I don't have any travel commitments, and I'm relatively available about every evening.
And lastly, you haven't been involved in the town political process
That's right.
to date. How do you feel about, as your first foray into this, into a very high-profile, very public committee where your every move is going to be watched and reported on?
Honestly, very excited. I've been wanting to get involved in the political process for a very long time. When I've been in Cincinnati, I was involved in the political process. I've wanted to here as well, and it was just for the lack of time that I haven't up until now, with a small family and study for an MBA program at Babson College. But I'm here and ready and excited to do so.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. You may or may not have heard, I think we will be making appointments August 13th, and you will hear from us after that.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thanks for your interest.
Thank you for your interest.
Mr. Steve Harvey? Sorry. Got you mixed up there for a moment. And I know you've heard everything, so we're not going to ask you any questions. We'll let you just answer them.
Can I ask the questions? Or? Sure.
Tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're interested in being on the Override Study Committee.
I've lived at 39 Irving Street for 14 years, and I've not been involved in the political process in Brookline, largely because up until about 2 years ago, I had a very heavy travel schedule at work and really didn't feel that I had a lot of time to devote to something as important as this committee. The thing that attracted me and that caused me to apply for consideration for the committee is that I have 30 years of experience as a municipal bond analyst and portfolio manager. I know local finance very, very well. I cut my teeth at the City of Philadelphia Finance Department, went on to Standard & Poor's from there, and then I've been the head of research at both Fidelity and my current firm, Standish Mellon Asset Management. So I'm very intrigued by how the whole decision gets made, how cities and towns build things. And I think that it's always a balancing act. And in Brookline, it's been a very successful balancing act between how much do you tax and how do you efficiently manage the government. I think it's very impressive that the current Moody's report actually cites the excellence of financial management in Brookline, and clearly that's a great virtue and one that the committee will need to work very closely to make sure that that's a consideration in the future as well. And it is a fine balancing act, and obviously this is a very difficult task that's going to be undertaken, and I want to lend my expertise to that difficult task.
Okay. Selectman Binka.
Let me just follow up on that comment, and that is, as you've undoubtedly heard, we will probably be working in subcommittees or task forces, and I'm curious as to how your expertise in municipal bond finance, looked at from that perspective, would be relevant to the work of the committee in this case, and how your expertise and interests would contribute to the sorts of decisions that
Sure.
we are likely going to have to recommend.
Well, clearly, a large part of the need for the override comes about because of the need for greater capital borrowing. And I certainly have a very clear understanding of bonding capacity, of how the rating agencies look at those kinds of factors. So I think probably the places where I could lend the greatest assistance and where I'd like to lend the assistance is around bonding capacity in the capital improvement plan.
Selectman Daley.
Yeah, do you have kids in the schools, or have you in the past?
I don't. My children, when we moved here, were already in private schools, and so we didn't move them out of the private schools that they were in. So I have not directly experienced the Brookline Public Schools.
So have you become familiar with them in some other way?
My neighborhood has had a tremendous turnover in it recently, and I think the draw of that turnover has been, it's young couples who are coming in who are using the schools, and I have heard a lot of feedback on it, and quite honestly, I wish we'd had another chance to make the decision again, because I think we would have chosen very differently. I'm actually a product of the public school all the way through. My wife is as well, and I believe very strongly in excellent public education.
Selectman Waschinsky.
My question is, what's your schedule look like? You can be able to devote the time to this that this is going to require?
I think I will. My travel schedule is pretty much one that I set myself, so I can certainly work around commitments. I do have a weekly commitment. I sing in the choir at my church, and that's a very important thing to me. So other than that, I'd certainly be willing to find ways to make my schedule work.
Is that a particular night of rehearsal a week, or is that?
It is. It's Wednesday nights.
Okay.
So.
Is that the night you're planning on meeting, Selectman Benka?
No, I think Mondays seem for some reason.
We've taken them already.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mondays are good because they're seldom travel days, so that's always.
I don't know. I'm really cannot speak. I have no idea what people's schedules are. But
How do you feel about getting involved in such a public, high-profile kind of position in your first foray into town public affairs?
I find it a pretty exciting idea. I think that this is a very, very important decision, and I think that the more information that can come into that decision is going to make it that much better a decision. And that's what I would see, if I were chosen, that would be how I would see my role, as helping to gather information, helping to disseminate that information, and helping both officials as well as residents of the town make the best decision they can.
And I'm just going to be sure that you have not already formed preconceptions or come to any kind of conclusions about some of the options that you may or may not have heard being discussed as solutions to our enrollment and classroom requirements?
All I know about it is what I read in the tab, and I have no preconception.
Not sure.
I don't know if that's good or bad, but.
There it is,
Okay.
right there.
It hasn't caused me to form a very firm opinion one way or the other.
All right, but you haven't been involved in any of the electronic media, because there's a lot of, okay.
No, I haven't.
All right. Okay. Any other questions?
Well, thank you very much.
Then thank you,
Thank you very
and we'll be making our appointments on August 13th, so you'll hear soon after that.
Good. I'll look forward to that. Thanks.
Tom Johnson.
What happened to
Oops, did I
Nate
skip
Hinchey?
somebody?
Yeah.
Oops, sorry, Mr. Johnson. I apologize. Somehow I got my list out of order.
Nate Hinchey,
We're-
I
The
think.
next person, actually, we're doing this alphabetically, is Nate Hinchey, who I missed. Apologies.
Next time we should do them in reverse alphabet.
We'll do them upside, yes, we'll do them from Z. All right.
Thank you. Yes, my name's Nate Hinchey. I'm a relatively new resident of Brookline as well. I just moved here last year, in 2012. I'm currently an assistant to the Dean of the Harvard Graduate School of Education, where I work on a variety of different issues in K-12 and higher education. My professional experience is in communications and community engagement, which I think is very important both in ensuring that this is an open and well-informed process, and also, as mentioned, in selling any decision that this committee would come to. My position at Harvard has given me the opportunity to continue my education. I've taken some courses in financial management while I work part-time on a master's degree in education policy and management. I serve on the governing board of Common Cause Massachusetts, which is a good government and campaign finance organization. And I was elected as a town meeting member earlier this year. As I was running, I told folks that my father is a town administrator, so getting involved in municipal government is in my blood, for better or worse. And finally, I'm certainly under no illusions that I have the kind of financial expertise that a lot of the other candidates do. But I will say this, I'm very eager to roll up my sleeves and work hard on this. And I think that I bring a unique perspective, or could bring a unique perspective to the committee, which is that the decisions that this committee makes over the next year or two will be affecting Brookline for decades to come. And that's my future, that's my children's future, should I decide to have them in Brookline Public Schools. And I think this committee would be very well served by appointing someone with that perspective.
Okay, Selectman Benka.
Yes, you've heard the question that I've posed to other candidates, and that is, what are the particular issues or the particular issue that you might want to carve out if and when we break into task forces or subcommittees that you think would fit your interests and your expertise and that would be relevant to the decisions that this committee is being asked to advise on?
Well, I think I would come to it in the hopes that I could serve the committee in whatever way would be best for the committee itself. I think that as far as values that I would bring to the committee, I would put more emphasis on those than necessarily what sort of subject matter I'd want to be focused on. And I think that would be transparency, an open and honest and accountable process. I would want to view the decisions that the committee made through the lens of those who would be most affected by any increase in taxes, those who are least able to afford such increases. I think I would want to put a premium on educational equity and social justice. And finally, I would want to, to preempt the question, what biases I bring, I think that I want to be able to judge these issues dispassionately and to say that we're going to make these decisions based on the merit, based on the data that's presented to us, and not based on emotion or any sort of political advocacy that has taken place up to this point.
Thank you.
Have you had an opportunity to become familiar with the Brookline schools at all?
No, I think that familiarization with the Brookline schools would be part of the work that I would look forward to on this committee.
Selectman Waschinsky?
So what's your schedule look like in the spring and the fall?
I'm a 9-to-5er, so as long as it's evenings, then I'm completely open.
And then you mentioned you were taking courses. How would that impact?
I am. This would, if I was given the honor of serving on this committee, it would be a high priority for me, so I could certainly schedule around that.
Okay. Other follow-up questions? Then thank you very much for.
Have you
Whoops,
asked your
sorry.
question about?
I think he answered it by saying that he didn't come with any preconceptions, but would you like to confirm that you do not have any, do you have any preconceptions?
I do not. No, I've been following, but like I said, I think it's very important to reserve judgment on these things until all the facts are in.
Right.
My other question about this is your this is your kind of your first big high-profile foray into town public affairs. Though I note that you were just elected a town meeting member, so it's a different scale. How do you feel about getting so involved so quickly, and are you comfortable being out front in public?
Well, I might as well go all in. That's how I figure it.
Okay, well, he's doing
big or go
communications,
home.
right?
Took the words out of my mouth.
All right. Thank you very much, and we anticipate making appointments on August 13th, and you'll hear shortly after that.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Johnson, sorry, apologize for mixing you up before, but you're welcome to come forward and tell us about yourself.
Good evening. My name is Tom Johnson. I've been a Brookline resident since 2000. I moved here from Atlanta and thought I would be here 5 years. And 13 years later, I don't see any end in sight to leaving. I really enjoy the town and the experience. I became introduced to this idea of the committee from a friend who sent me a link and said, by the way, have you seen this link? Are you familiar with this? And I said, no, I'm not, but that's very interesting. And it hit on a lot of themes that I'm familiar with. My background is I'm a partner in an investment company. We manage assets for pension funds, endowments, and foundations, and other institutional investors. We started the company 10 years ago and now have $1 billion in assets under management. Prior to that, I was in management consulting for PricewaterhouseCoopers, and I focused on the financial services industry. So I looked at it, and I looked at the requirements, and I called Mr. Binka, whose name was listed, and I said, looking at this, it sounds very interesting. It sounds like it's a pretty good match for my background, and a friend mentioned this to me, and what do you think? And so we had a nice, pleasant conversation, and upon reflecting on it for about a week, I submitted my application. The first thing I'd like to say is I'm impressed by the candidates who are coming forward. One of the things I mentioned to Mr. Binka was that the nice thing about living in a town like Brookline is the remarkable level of talented people that you find here in Brookline. And the availability, their availability for a project like this is amazing. So you cannot go wrong with almost everybody I've met and the descriptions I've seen of people's backgrounds. So congratulations on having such a great volunteer pool.
Selectman Baker, you want to?
Well, I thank you for that comment about Brookline, and
I'll say amen.
Yeah.
It's not only that there are talented people in this town, but that they are willing to, and eager, in fact, to get involved in this way. So thank you individually, and thanks to everybody who, and it's not only this committee, but it's so many other committees in town. It really does make it a special place. The question I've asked everybody is, if you were a member of the committee, are there issues, or is there an issue that you might want to carve out that would fit your particular interest, your particular expertise, and that would be relevant to the charge of the committee with respect to recommendations regarding a potential override or debt exclusion?
I think my primary skill would be coming in with an objective mindset and being a generalist. My background includes financial analysis. I, like many of the other candidates, have an MBA, and of course, am a partner in an investment company, and that's core to what we do every day. Analyzing whether or not we should acquire an asset, deciding when to dispose it, that part of the responsibility would certainly play to my strengths. Also, building a company from scratch, you certainly have to understand the environment in which you're operating and how to position yourself within the marketplace. And ultimately, what you're doing here is two things. One, you're looking at whatever decision is the most appropriate, understanding that intricately, deciding if that's the right decision, and then you're ultimately communicating that to the individuals who will pay for that. And that is a big part of what I've had to do in my job is that type of communication. So it's cutting across the analysis and all the way over to the communication of that analysis in an effective way to accomplish the objective. So I think that's really where I can come in. I think, one of the items was demographics. I'm not a demographer, but when we make investments, we have to understand demographics. We understand who to hire, how to evaluate those demographics, and really challenge those assumptions. And I think that's certainly where I could be of value, is really a generalist looking across the full spectrum of the challenges you have and trying to add value in all of those areas.
Thank you.
Selectman Daley?
Yeah, so do you have kids in the schools, or are you familiar with the schools in any?
I have a general level of familiarity. My wife and I do not have children, but I have a general level of familiarity. So I do come in with an open mind in terms of what approach to take, and to me, this is all about doing the right thing, and the right thing for Brookline as a community. And I come in with a fairly open mind as far as that goes. Okay,
And let me just ask, and you said in your letter that you specialize in the management of real assets. You mean real property?
That's right. It's to be specific, it's actually commercial timberland, which of course piques everybody's interest. Our company acquires commercial timberland, and we manage the land to produce timber, to produce wood products.
I don't think any of the sites the B-Space Committee is thinking of are timber sites, but yes, okay.
No, the parallel is to real estate, though. Many of our CFO came from a real estate background. People who work for me have heavy real estate background. So if you understand our business, you understand real estate and vice versa, except there is the element of silviculture and dendrology related to understanding trees and how they grow, et cetera. But
Okay.
There are tremendous parallels there.
It does explain why your undergraduate, or I remember seeing that you had forestry in your background, and I didn't
Master of
connect.
Forestry
Yeah, right.
I am the only candidate, probably, with a master's in forestry.
Maybe, could be.
It will not be very useful, but that is,
Selectman Waschinsky?
So what's your schedule look like in this fall and spring? You're going to have the time to put in on this?
I feel like I have the time. I have one travel commitment the latter part of September, but to the extent I can work remotely, which I'm pretty adept at, I could certainly maintain the commitment.
And how do you feel about being in the public eye?
Well, interestingly enough, when I don't have a problem with it. Let me start with that. Again, I go back to, it's all about doing the right thing. And I think if you do the right thing, everything else will take care of itself. Having said that, when I submitted this, I had no idea that this would be quite as public. For example, I didn't realize I would be interviewing in a public forum.
You're on TV.
And
so-
every meeting you attend will be in public.
But I am comfortable with that in the sense that in our business, a number of our clients are state pension funds. So I present our work and our relationship to state boards. Oftentimes that includes the treasurer of the state, the lieutenant governor of the state, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm comfortable presenting and interacting with state level boards, and certainly it's not an issue to me. It was just one of expectations.
Okay, then I'm going to ask you about preconceptions, and although I understand you don't have children in the schools, you do happen to live in a neighborhood that had a great deal of interest in one of the potential sites,
Right.
the Amory Park.
Right. And that's how I became introduced to this issue to begin with, candidly, is that I'm a trustee for our condo association. So as trustee and a fiduciary, all of a sudden I started getting information from everybody about Amory Park may be a site for school. So I started researching and trying to figure out, okay, what is this about? How did we get to where we are? How did that become identified? And that sort of piqued my intellectual curiosity about how do we get from where we are to here? And that sort of, again, piqued my curiosity to begin with. Now, can I have an open mind? Absolutely. I've always said that as long as all of these opportunities are vetted thoroughly by the right people with the right skill sets, you will come up with the right answers. But it's a matter of applying the right skill sets and understanding sort of the particulars. And, I think anybody can be reasoned into the right decision, doing the right thing with that as a background. So I would certainly be open-minded.
Well, I don't know how far you followed the process, but informally, Amory Park was taken off the list of potential sites. Doesn't mean that it could come back up if there were compelling argument for it. But we did have quite a lot of public interest and opposition to the choice of Amory Park. So I just would be helpful for us to know whether you took a position on that point.
Right, and I did. Based on preliminary information, I did not think Amory Park was a good solution. But having said that, it was limited by the analysis of, because it was identified as a site without looking at its potential from a real estate point of view. And if you had somebody with a real estate and engineering background to analyze it, and they came back and said, wow, this site would not be a problem at all, and it was the best of the alternatives, and it preserved the community values, I wouldn't have had an issue with it. What concerned me is that it got put on the table without having that analysis, of course, and that brought all the attention and the concern along with it.
Okay. Thank you. Any other follow-up questions? Then we appreciate your interest, and we should be making appointments August 13th, and you'll hear from us after that.
All right. Good luck. Again, you've got great candidates. I'm thrilled that you have so many good people. Thank you.
Thanks for your interest. Okay, next person is Sergio Modigliani.
Good evening. I am
Welcome.
Sergio Modigliani, 134 Salisbury, resident of the town for 33 years, supporter of the Brookline schools. 2 children went through Driscoll. I'm obviously very pleased to see the quality of the candidates that the board is interviewing, excluding myself. It's really not clear to me what I would offer the committee in specifics, but I think I'm known to the members of the board for a number of years, and I think each of you have had some opportunity to interact with me, to work on problems with me, to understand that I think I think of myself as a person who tries to ask questions and occasionally suggests approaches or even answers to those questions. I think I'm a person that's fact-driven. And one of the things that is key, it seems to me, for the board, as you consider this committee, is the makeup of the committee and how the various members would sort of fit together. Perhaps, as you also know, I'm an architect. I'm practicing for almost 40 years. Schools are part of that practice, although a very small part. Most of my work has been houses or hospitals. But I'm certainly very familiar with all of those aspects of construction projects. But I think one of the things that I've gathered and gained as an architect is an approach to difficult problems and how to think about them. As an architect, we're required to pull together extremely disparate information: the site, the environment, hazardous material issues, environmental questions, the program of the client, the costs, project goals, codes of all different kinds. Each one of these becomes a filter which has to be brought in, and perhaps one analogy would be that they get sort of stacked up. And you then have to look through all of those to find out where are the possible solutions. And it strikes me that in some ways the task that we face as a town is similar to that process. And so in that sense, I feel equipped to live with ambiguity, because that's part of what I think is necessary in this process. And by ambiguity, I mean a willingness to not jump to an early conclusion, but to live with the tension of gathering the facts and waiting until all of those balls have been brought together and are up in the air, and only at that time to let them settle. And that's a skill which I think, as an architect, I do bring. I obviously have a large background in aspects of the town, which you all know, but I'll just touch on. It's included service on 4 different building committees involving the schools, starting with the new Lincoln and Driscoll, Lawrence, and most recently, you should be aware that you have appointed me to the Devotion Building School Committee. And so I don't know whether that actually is a conflict for this service. I'm also, as you know, involved with the town over many years, including the chair of the advisory committee, which required putting together the town budget for a number of years. And that, of course, gets you directly into the related issues, which include the bonding, both how we do it and what our ratings are, the tax structure of the town, and how the residential and commercial structures are impacted, and how the schools in particular become an important factor in that. I was lucky enough to grow up with a father who was a pretty good teacher of economics, and I don't have formal training, but I got a fair amount at breakfast. So, what are my current assignments? I'm a member of the planning board. I also, I believe, still a member of the town administrator's school facilities committee, which is actually where my understanding and knowledge of many of the issues that are before us began back in 2011. I have followed, to the best of my ability, much of the activity, including the projections that we're all dealing with from MGT. And for those of you who know and saw when I attended, I had a number of questions about that process. I was a little surprised to find such precise answers, 7,822 students in the year 2022, without any error bars, no plus or minus. And it also struck me that there seemed to be little consideration of certain, I think, basic facts, which include that we are not adding large numbers of housing stock to this town. In fact, in the decade of 2000 to 2010, we added about 150. And also prices. And it seems a little hard to believe that an analysis done by such an organization would not touch on those kinds of questions. And so those were some of the questions that I tried to raise. I do believe that if we find that we have a new normal, namely that we really are facing this for a long term, and for long term for me means at least 20 years, then I'm a firm believer in bricks and mortar, and that the system deserves that, the children need that, and indeed, in a lot of ways, it's actually better for the town. We get better facilities and probably better operating costs. But we have to have that kind of a life frame for an investment of this type, in my opinion, that we don't want to be building buildings which truthfully have 40-year lives and even longer on something which might turn out to not be needed. So how we figure that out seems to me to be a pretty critical issue. I have a number of complete voids. One of those is educational philosophy. I have really no background or understanding of what is the right educational model, or what should we be headed for. Is K through 8 the way to go, or is it not, or 2 high schools? I don't know anything there. And therefore, if I were to serve, I would need to be guided by other members of this committee who hopefully would have that kind of knowledge. Some of the B-Space work I've also followed. Indeed, I think it's fair to say that back in March, I created some of the frameworks and some of the questions which B-Space actually adopted and formalized for themselves as ways to think about how some of the cost issues, districting issues, impacts on different communities could be thought about. So I'm also aware that in the recent period, we've seen, I think, an unfortunate development of colored T-shirts. And I personally would feel very strongly that if I were to serve, that I would hope that I would be wearing a coat of many colors. It's a town issue, it's Brookline, and it's not about one neighborhood. And the solutions I hope that I would be seeking are really on a town-wide basis. Thank you.
Okay, Selectman Benka.
Thank you. Sergey, you've heard the question that I've put to the other candidates, and that is,
Which subcommittee?
Which subcommittee, what issue or issues might you want to carve out that would fit your expertise, fit your interests?
I would imagine that you might think of me perhaps as somebody who could understand some of the construction-related issues. But I think some of the financial questions are very much a part of this. And there is a political component. As you know, I was a town meeting member for about 10 years. I'm no longer. But trying to figure some of those issues out seemed to me to be critical. You, in your website, had identified a number of different areas, the long-range financial projections, and demographics. I think I've spoken to both of those. I think I bring something to bear in those issues. The efficiencies and things of that nature, I've served on town committees that were looking at some of those kinds of questions. I feel familiar with those. Operating and capital are clearly something that I understand. And so I don't know exactly. I would feel more as if you would determine where you had a sense that it would fill a hole best.
Thank you.
Yes, Selectman Daley.
I think Sergio answered all the questions, and I will testify that I always thought he was remarkably good with numbers for an architect. So some of those world-famous economic genes did make the cut.
Was your father he was a Nobel Prize winner in economics?
He did. He won the
Yeah.
prize in 1985 at MIT. You were going to ask your question.
So what's your schedule look like, Sergio?
Well, I think the answer is that the time will be made.
And I'm just going to follow up briefly to clarify that you do not have any preconceptions because you actually have followed B-Space probably more closely than many of our other candidates.
Yeah, I think I've tried to not have preconceptions and perhaps to add some conceptions and for testing. But I don't think that I have any understanding about where the balls are really going to settle. And if anyone else does, please let me know.
No, I think we're all in agreement that they're definitely still up in the air, all of them. And it's, we're trying to carry our umbrellas around, see where they land on it, whether they don't land on our heads.
Yeah. Or your helmet.
Or, yeah, right, or maybe wear helmets. Okay, any final follow-ups? All right, well, thank you very much for your interest, and as you've heard, you will hear after August 13th.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ms. Silverberg.
Good evening. Hi.
Welcome, and you are one of the many highly qualified people who we are pleased to have come forward. So tell us a little bit about yourself and why you think this would be an interesting way to volunteer.
I'm Susan Silverberg. I've been a resident of the town for a little bit over 14 years. I have 3 children. My oldest is going into a sophomore year of college, and my youngest is entering 3rd grade at Lincoln School. I will have been a parent in the school system about 24 years before my daughter graduates from the high school. I am a city planner and an urban designer. I'm the founder and managing director of Civic Moxie, which is a urban planning and design consulting firm. And we specialize in community revitalization, real estate advising, placemaking, and arts and culture. I also am a lecturer at MIT half-time, where I've been teaching in the urban studies and planning program for 11 years, and I'm a mom. So I think that before I go any further, having been a resident of the town for a while and not having been on any official committees, but certainly being involved either behind the scenes or with groups of parents to get things done, such as the light at Kennard and Walnut, which I spearheaded with Lenore von Kruschenstern many years ago. I understand that everyone on the committee is going to be front and center in the public eye, that things may be thrown at us at times, things we don't like, and that for anything we bring up, half of the town is going to be for it and half of the town is going to be against it. And that's really the challenge and why I'm interested in serving on this committee. One of the things I do as a profession that I think I do very well is finding win-win solutions in complex situations that require really savvy solutions. It's what I do in my consulting work. I go into communities, whether it be East Cambridge under a planning moratorium 10 years ago with very angry residents who didn't want any more high-tech and biotech space, and taking 18 months to look at what was the best way to do development so residents could get what they wanted but also have their fears kind of calmed, and how could the city get economic development to working with nonprofits and looking at organizational change and strategic planning. And I think that what really intrigues me about this is something I spoke about at the B-Space meeting a while back, is that I think that there are a number of opportunities here, because I like to look at things in terms of opportunities. There are a number of opportunities here to look at bigger picture issues that I think are going to be forces in the town for a long time to come. And some of the basic ones are things such as we have a very low proportion of commercial property and tax rate compared to other towns like us. And how do we look at this issue and look at what some opportunities may come out of this? When we look at efficiencies, I'd like to think of efficiencies in kind of a broader, more holistic way, of not only efficiencies of, are we doubling up on staff, or how can we use buildings, and how do we manage our resources, but also kind of political will and social capital efficiencies. And how do we think about, are there opportunities here to come into a bigger conversation in the town around things such as commercial space and commercial tax rate, and how are we going to keep our quality of life in this truly wonderful place for the long run, or will we be talking about this again in another 10 years? And I think that talking about some of those things is the way to build political will for whatever solution we come through and recommendations we come through with. And it's about trying to find commonality of language and understand, I guess, what are people's concerns and interests behind the, I guess, kind of very public for or against, and trying to find threads that tie people together. And I think I do that really well.
Selectman Baker.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Sure.
You've heard the question that I've asked
Yeah.
the other individuals applying, and that is, what particular issue or issues might you want to carve out that would fit your expertise, your background, your interests, and that would be relevant to the mission of this committee?
Right. Well, I certainly have background in, real estate development and looking at pro formas. I've done advising on that. I'm an architect, so I know construction and those things. I think I would hold off. I'd be interested in any of those things and where I would best fit given the makeup of the committee and what the dynamic was in the committee. But I also think kind of looking at how all those pieces come together and how they speak to each other is an area that I might serve if that's what came to be. And looking at the political side of it and looking at how solutions can serve communities and neighborhoods and the overall town goals. How do we find those win-wins? So wherever that fits, I think is.
Thank you.
Selectman Daley.
I think she answered my question already, so I will.
So, Susan, what's your schedule look like?
My schedule is always busy, but I'll make the time.
And do you feel comfortable in your first big foray into town public affairs to be so out front? And how do you feel about that?
It's basically what I do for a living, so this is home, kind of home roost here, but I'm out in front all the time on projects that are sometimes unpopular with one constituency or another, so yeah.
Then my question is, do you have any preconceptions, and given that you are active in the Lincoln community where we know there are some very strong opinions?
Yeah, I don't have preconceptions. I actually, I feel, and I haven't really come out and talked about this yet, but talked to a lot of parents from Lincoln and neighbors. I feel that all options should be on the table, and with the right approach, a choice such as Old Lincoln School with the right vision could be an absolutely spectacular choice for the neighborhood, for the children, for the town, as many of the other choices might be. And I think it's all about approach and really understanding how to make the best of it and having a vision. So there are no preconceptions here, except I have the preconception that I think we can answer concerns and come forward and understand that we've listened and put forward something that people can be excited about and proud of.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other follow-ups?
Nope.
No?
Thank you.
Then you will hear from us sometime around August 13th. Next is Sundar Srinivasan. Mr. Srinivasan? Sundar Srinivasan? Are there people outside?
I don't know. Carlos, check.
We're running a little
We're actually
oddly,
ahead of
slightly ahead of schedule.
But
Unexpected.
fortunately, 8
That's because
o'clock
you
on our
told us we
public
have to
hearings.
cut our questions short.
Well, and then people started answering the questions without having to be asked. Okay, then the next person is Beth Jackson Stram. Ms. Stram?
Good evening.
So, welcome, and tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're interested in this appointment.
Yes, thank you. So I am here because I, like many of the other candidates, understand that this is a very difficult problem that the town is trying to solve, and I think it's one of the most critical that we'll face in the next decade. And I think that I have a relevant background to be able to put forth here, specifically in the area of financial modeling and also context of working within education. I started my career at Morgan Stanley in investment banking and did financial analysis for for-profit organizations and also worked in the debt markets. Following that, I've been entirely in the social sector for the last 12 years. And I worked at an organization called Shackleton Schools, which was a private high school for disadvantaged youth, where I did development and prepared budgets for grants. And then most recently, I've been a strategy consultant in the social sector, working quite a lot with education organizations and also organizations covering other areas of human services. And for those organizations, I've done quite a lot of revenue and cost analyses, financial projections, and also a number of qualitative analyses to understand the various points of view of their stakeholders. Specifically, one of the most relevant experiences I have is working with the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, and I advised them on developing their Race to the Top proposal, which was a grant to receive education reform money. And I helped them develop the budget for that, and also helped them with their stakeholder outreach so that they were able to understand the varying points of view of districts and school committees and teachers unions throughout the state, and being able to incorporate that into their proposal. So I have a fairly solid understanding from my professional career of what it takes to take some very strong and different points of view on a subject and try and develop some consensus around that. In Brookline, I've been a homeowner here for 2 years, and I also have 3 children. 2 of them are presently at the devotion school, one entering kindergarten and another one entering 2nd grade.
Thank you. I've asked this question of the other applicants, and I know you've been sitting here, so you've heard it, but let me ask you, given your particular interest, your particular expertise, what issue or issues do you think you might want to carve out, or would you feel might be appropriate for you to carve out for the work that this committee is charged with doing?
So I think it would be most useful in the financial modeling for the schools. However, as I alluded to, my professional experience goes beyond just the education sector. I've also worked with environmental organizations, other human services organizations, and the work requires a very analytic and data-driven approach. So I do feel as though I would be potentially useful in several of the other areas, but the one I think I'd provide the most value to would be the financial modeling for the schools.
Thank you.
Selectman Daley?
Well, I guess since you're going into second grade now, you've had a couple of years to get familiar with the Brookline schools.
Yes.
And so what, well, I'll go ahead and turn it over to.
Okay. My process questions, how's your schedule look like in the fall and spring?
So I am very willing to commit the time necessary to do this. I have flexibility in my career to carve out the time to do this, and the support of my family as well. So,
Good child care?
And how do you feel about your first foray into the town political and public process, being so out front and so public?
well, I'm certainly not seeking the limelight, but I am comfortable with it. As I mentioned, in my career, I've had experience with the public process before, not at the town level, but at the state level, and have seen how important it is to provide opportunities for people to state their points of view, to listen carefully to them, and figure out how to incorporate their concerns and their perspectives into the process. So that is something that I am comfortable with.
And as a parent, you certainly must be aware of all of the various proposals that have been discussed and opinions that are being expressed about them. So my question is, do you have any preconceptions or thoughts about the proposals that are being discussed, which may or may not necessarily be what V-Space is recommending?
No, so I've been keeping up to speed on it, but I have not been actively engaged in any one perspective. So no, I don't have any biases, and my bias is towards data-driven decision-making. It's what I do for work. I advise clients on how to take scarce resources and apply them to the greatest social good, and that is exactly what I intend to help do here if I have the opportunity.
Okay. Any follow-ups from members? Then thank you very much, and you will hear from us August 13th plus, after August 13th.
Thank you.
All right, is Mr. Srinivasan with us? Mr. Srinivasan? Then Ms. Tolkoff,
Last but not least.
not least, definitely not least, and maybe not even quite last, but
First of all, thank you for your service. I know I drove up from the Cape today, and I know that you're not going to listen to that with any sympathy because you're not on the Cape. Let's look at the Pierce School, or not. I can remember when major renovation was done at the Pierce School 30 years ago, and a big concern that I had then was all the exits. And all the renovation of the Pierce School was driven by a curriculum and instructional idea that was thought to be state-of-the-art and in retrospect has looked like a fad, and that was open classroom. And so the architecture followed the instructional idea. And I remember looking at all the exits as the daughter of a firefighter and thinking all the kids, any eighth grader can sneak out for a cigarette, kids can go out to play hooky. Now the concern at the Pierce School with all those exits outside of the expense of our public works who are obliged to shovel them, people are concerned about someone getting into the building. I worked in Chelsea when Tom Birmingham got a lot of money from the state to build a brand-new high school. Looks fabulous from the outside. Again, directed by an instructional idea that the students be divided into fours, choose a program freshman year, and you're in your quatrain, your quarter of the building. What has happened is, people did not think that some children fail a class, some children have an ESL class, some children play the oboe. And so the building doesn't work, because a youngster has a class on the first floor in one quarter and the third floor in another quarter. What is my point? My point is that you need an educator, you need someone who talks to the parents, who talks about drop-off, pick-up, someone who can listen to the kids, listen to the educators. I am an educator's educator. I've been in the classroom for a lot of years. I've seen a lot of the fads come and go. I believe I'm open to consideration. I love the K-8 system. I could talk to you about my commitment to it. I could look at a K-6. I would try to stay open to an instructional or curriculum model. But what I think I would be best at is listening to the citizens of the community as they are talking about what the needs are of the community, and looking back, taking a look at what has worked and not worked in a lot of places. In terms of the financing, I could be intimidated. I was looking at a master's in forestry. This is someone who could see the forest and not worry about the trees, and I'm worrying about the individual kids. I can remember, in terms of financing, the Renaissance Charter School was a big favorite of Governor Bill Weld. They had a $9 million, don't quote me on the exact, bond, and the state underwrote it, and it was a fabulous idea. And they built it in the middle of Park Square. It was supposed to be a prize building and a prize school. Terrific. Guess what? No one wants to walk out of the Park Plaza Hotel and look at 18 yellow school buses. Guess what? The men and women whose kids were in the building were, for the most part, in 02124, which is Dorchester. They couldn't pay $12 to park the car to go to PTO meetings. No one thought about the educational part and the people part about what was happening with that building. It lasted for a while. You, the taxpayers, put a lot of money into it. It has now failed and moved, or the site has failed. So I think you need to look at that part of the complexity of this. I am a classroom teacher, high school English, have always loved it. That's what I've done. My service to the town has been on various committees, most specifically the school committee. In the 80s, when Prop 2.5 came in, I thought I can save the world, and that was a very tough and political time. And so I got involved in the school committee. I've also served on town meeting. My own 3 children are graduates of the Brookline Public. My oldest will turn 40 in the fall, and we have 4 grandchildren now, ironically, despite my arguments at the Pierce School. Not my arguments about their going to public school, all good, but that particular building. So I believe in any complicated problem. The Japanese say, all of us are smarter than any one of us. I believe that I'm good at taking some complicated information and explaining it well. I did that as a classroom teacher. And to preempt Mr. Banker's question, I believe I would be very good at explaining what goes on to the committee, to people at the Senior Citizen Center, to a group at the Devotion School, to the organizations and groups of people that you're going to need to get the override passed. And you're going to have to think about what can pass, not just what is ideal, but what can pass as you're moving forward with that. And I hope not terribly limited by that political piece, but you know that's the practicality of it. One more thing, we don't want to end up, and I don't see Brookline doing that, we don't want to end up with a Newton fiasco. And I don't just mean the constant expenditure with the override. I think, I don't have the data exact on this, but anecdotally, and I'm sure you've heard, when you talk to taxpayers in Brookline, in Newton, they're not happy people about the high school. People are not saying, isn't it fabulous? We have a wonderful LGI room for the youngsters. Isn't it great? We have this film section for documentaries. What I hear is people saying, have you seen my tax bill? I can't believe the kids need that. Now, I don't know how that is accurate. I haven't done a poll, but when this whole process is over, we want people to say, we have the commitment to education in Brookline. We always have. We believe that public education is the perpetuation of the republic. We are at a very difficult crossroads in our nation about this. We accept that responsibility in Brookline. We take it seriously. So that's why I would like to serve. I think it's an interesting time. I have the time now. I'm in retirement. I love the town. I will be involved in these discussions whether I'm part of the decision-making or not. I applaud your inspiration because people would not have applied to work on this project without wanting to work with you and with members of the school committee, and that's a very good thing. So, I'm Ann Conley Talkoff, and I'm Precinct 11, and I would be honored to work with you.
Is there any?
My question has been addressed.
Yeah,
I'm the potted plants.
Yeah. Mine has been answered as well. Thank you.
Which means you're a good listener.
Yes.
Well, you know, my people come from the west coast of Ireland, the very west coast. My grandparents did not speak English when they came here. It's unusual for the Irish who have political success because they arrived speaking English, but not my people. But in my family, we rarely say thank you for listening. What we say is thank you for letting me talk. It's a slightly different concept, and my husband, we were probably married 10 years before he got it, but the last 33 years have been good. So, thank you for letting me talk.
I will, I guess, put the question about preconceptions because I know you're a pretty well-connected person and you've probably heard something about the various proposals that have been voted and certainly must be aware that there are very strong opinions.
Yeah, thank you, Betsy. I don't have a preconception. I mean,
Except for hating.
Except K8. I'm sorry, Ms. Daly.
Except for hating Pierce.
Well, I don't hate it. I think that I used to say to my students, we don't make mistakes, we have experience, but I don't really believe that. I think sometimes we make mistakes, but we can learn from them, and I hope we do that at Pierce. I believe that this is a time, Ms. DeWitt, this is a time to put everything on the table, and to put, if one has a preconception, to put it aside. This is a real fabulous, fabulous challenge. You know, the Lincoln School drew blood. The Lincoln School drew blood, building it, getting the architect over from Cambridge, making it, you know, the piece that it is, and I think it turned out fabulous. Some of you may remember the blood that was drawn in precincts 4, 5, and 6 over that. So I do think that we can put anything on the table, really take a new look at it, ask for input from some of the talented families, young families, some of the talented people that we're listening to here today, and do something, Brookline, something fabulous. Anything's on the table.
Okay, go ahead.
I won't hold it against you, but I did warn the last group that the correct answer from my point of view was that you love the K through 8 system.
As a teacher and as a parent, I do love that. I do love that. I think I said that early on. But not so much that I would say, all right, if I have a prejudice, it's against middle school and junior high. Because if middle school is the answer, then the question is, how do you save money? I can't think of another thing for that. Anyway.
Thank you. I actually just want to make a comment, and that is that I am not really convinced that it's going to be the function or the role of this committee to talk about educational policy in the sense of whether it's a K-8 system or a K-6, 7, 8 system. I think to the extent that there are alternatives that are brought forth, we're going to look at what they'll cost and what the implications of them are. But I just wanted to sort of disabuse people of what the role of this committee is likely to be. It will obviously develop as it goes forward.
I think that's accurate. I believe that The role of this committee will be more selling the work of other committees. But that said,
I'm not sure that's true. I think actually this committee is going to be reviewing the work of other committees and testing assumptions, testing the data, and looking at what options there might be. But I'm not sure that this committee, and Susan Wolf-Didkoff, who's co-chairing the committee, is in the audience. We're not, I think, going to be redesigning the school system. So,
To the extent, and I just want at least to be clear to the wider public out there, that if there is a recommendation that comes forward that does some sort of reconfiguration, that will be subject to assessment.
absolutely.
Right.
yeah, and I do think that though you are not going to start from scratch and rebuild a whole school system, certainly not one as excellent as Brookline, given the fervor and the commitment and the passion and sometimes the anger that's out there, you're going to have to be educated on the issues, answer to the issues, and end up discussing the issues. Maybe you can refer those discussions back to another committee or to school committee, but they will be part of the atmosphere all next year.
That's fair. Well, thank you very much. You've heard me say we will be making appointments August
Yes.
13th, and you'll hear from us shortly after that.
Okay, thank you very much, and thank you for listening.
Yes.
Thank you.
And thank you for speaking up. Okay, if Mr. Srinivasan is present, apparently not, then that's the last interview scheduled for this evening. And we will move now back to our calendar and take up a totally different set of issues. With regard to licensing. And the first item is a request for a change of hours. Are there representatives here from Hong Kong Cafe 2? Uh-huh. Then,
We're actually right on time. We're right on time.
we are.
We're fooling people.
So it's such a rare occurrence that apparently folks haven't realized that we might possibly be on time. All right, then let's take the next item in order, and we'll see if there's anybody here from Otto.
Yeah.
Yep, good. And I gather this is a request for entertainment, live music.
Yes. My name is Anthony Allen from Otto. Our ComAv location is desperate for a little nighttime entertainment. We've done something up in Portland with bluegrass music once a week, sometimes twice a week, and it's been terrific. And we'd like to introduce that to ComAv.
And do you have a sort of a reasonable space in order to, I didn't see a plan, I'm sure I've had one before, I didn't see a plan in here. I was just trying to envision how you would set up with a instrumental group.
We do have a space to the right of the door when you go in. It'll be carved out, and it's a fairly small area, but it's 3 or 4 guys with a mandolin, a banjo, maybe a fiddle. They don't take up too much room.
Okay. I did read all the reports, and no one suggested that there was not adequate space. So I didn't really mean to suggest that. It was more a question of how are you going to do it?
I will just note, and I'm sure Selectman Daley has noted the word fiddle.
Fiddle, I did.
You're invited.
I'm the mother of a fiddler, and I always vote for live music, particularly when it involves the fiddle. So
This could go until
you've got my
3
vote.
Until 3 a.m., and
Yes.
Selectman Daley might be voting for fiddle music.
Right.
It's fun.
It is.
Yes.
All right, so this is a public hearing. Is there anyone here who wishes to speak either in favor or in opposition to the addition of instrumental music at 88 Commonwealth Avenue at Otto from 7 to 10 p.m.?
I'm-
Seeing and hearing none. Yes?
Just so I understand, the change here is the tape, you already have the tape music.
Yeah, it's adding
We do.
live.
And it's just adding the
Adding
Saturday
live.
and Sunday, 7 PM to 10 PM instrumental.
It is.
Great, okay.
All right, then I will recommend that I will move that we approve the application of MASHD LLC, doing business as Otto, holder of a wine and malt beverages license as common victualler at 888 Commonwealth Avenue, to increase their entertainment to include instrumental music from 7 till 10 p.m. on Sunday and Saturday. All in favor, please say aye. Selectman Daley?
Aye.
Selectman Benka?
Aye.
Selectman Waschinsky?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Good luck.
Terrific.
And perhaps Selectman Daley will come and listen
That's
to
a
your
yes.
fiddle music.
Come on down. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you want to go back?
Yes,
Perhaps?
all right, so we are, yeah, I know, I'm looking for the docs. Is there someone here from Hong Kong Cafe 2? Yes? Okay. And your application is for an extension of hours?
Yes.
So just explain to us what you have in mind.
Last time we applied for from 4 p.m. to 2 a.m. and we found out a lot of customer call us and at 4 p.m. and said, why you guys didn't open for lunchtime? We were very disappointed. And there are a couple of customers come in and talk to us about this problem. So I feel like lots of neighborhood would like us to open at the lunchtime. So we would like to apply to change our time.
Okay. Go ahead.
And just, I saw the 2 AM, and that's
But they've already
that's
got.
always of some concern, but all that this application does is to move the opening earlier from 4 PM to 11 AM.
Basically
So-
expands to serve lunch.
Basically to be
Right.
open during the day.
Right. I'd like to also point out that this is a food vendor, there's no alcoholic beverage license involved.
Right.
So, I don't even think this is a public hearing, to be honest. Is there any question or comment from other members of the board? Then I will move that we approve the application of TL 1391, doing business as Hong Kong Cafe 2, for an increase in hours from Sunday through Saturday, opening at 4 p.m., increase to opening at 11 a.m. and until 2 a.m. All in favor, please say aye. Selectman Daley?
Aye.
Selectman Benka?
Aye.
Selectman Waschinsky?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Go serve lunch.
Thank you.
Good luck, thank you.
Thank you.
Oh,
yes,
menus,
the
yes,
menu.
we always like to see menus. Thank you. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you.
We have to share, huh?
Send it along.
I don't know.
Looks good.
All right. The next item is to have outdoor seating on Station Street. Is there someone here from Cuckoo? Wow, we are running too far ahead. Next is an application for outside seating for Cognac Bistro. Is there someone here to represent Cognac Bistro? I'm beginning to think we may have to take a brief intermission. Is there anyone here representing Night Moves Cafe? Okay. Is there anyone here representing Kayam? Nope. I think we're going to take a break.
And we've got a
Well, I think Mr. is Perhaps Mr. Srinivasan has joined us? Is that, no?
No, no, no. All right,
Is anybody in the audience here on any issue on the agenda that we have to meet, discuss? Okay.
all right, then we are going to take a break, 15 minutes. We'll be back at about 8:20. Yes. It's never happened before.
See, that'll teach you to tell us to cut our questions short.
Oh, right, right. Well, we got those done in the time we allowed. We just should have taken more time.
Right.
Right. If you only knew how we tried to cut this down, so we could get
Well, there was a few applicants, I think 3 that
and then people who dropped out, so we have fewer interviews than we had thought we would have.
Right.
Okay. We joked about it, we gave them
it
Doctor
can't-
Who things.
will not be on the floor of Brookline Town Meeting.
Oh, yes. Me saying that he was not John Kennedy. He's not doing too bad.
Well, but if people are here, we can,
All right, so we did.
Well, let's move ahead with what we've got Mr. Barnowski, so we can,
should,
We need to reconvene.
and we have learned that some people were advised not to show up until 8:30 or later, knowing that
We always run late.
we are very seldom on time.
Were you given a time?
Well, I know the public notice for Cognac Bistro said 8:30, and I wasn't aware that you would be able to take it earlier. If that's the
okay.
case, I'll know in the
So
future.
we just knew
Well, it
that
never
we
happens.
had,
Right.
right, we had
Was that a
food
public-
licensing schedule starting at 8 o'clock, and so we just take them in order.
it's not a public hearing,
No,
right?
but
This is true.
we do
But if-
notify town meeting members
Right.
and the
So
approximate neighborhood.
if,
Well,
if,
it's 8:30 now, so we
yeah,
can
I
go
think
ahead.
we're allowed to go ahead, and you are representing Cognac Bistro. Anybody else?
No, that'll be it. I'm here alone today. Oh, I'm,
Who are
yes,
you
I'll also
representing
be
today?
representing Kayam.
Kayam.
Yes.
And
And was there a
Cognac.
time
Their-
given
their-
for that?
Their time was for 8:50, although I do anticipate the client being here any moment.
850, okay. And how about, all right, so do you have people coming?
I have nobody coming for Cognac Bistro. I do have the owner of
For
Kayam
Kayam.
coming. Yes.
Okay, then in that case, we could probably proceed with Cognac Bistro at this time?
Yes, thank you.
Good. Then would you please identify yourself for the public?
Yes, for the record, my name is Adam Barnowski. I'm with the Law Office of Robert Allen at 300 Washington Street here in Brookline Village.
And we have a request for outdoor seating, which I believe is not a change from previous outdoor seating. Is that correct? Do you
That
know?
is that is correct.
And as I understand it, we have all of the approvals from the building department and Public Works. We did not have any opposition or concerns from the various code enforcement folks. So are there any questions for Mr. Barnowski?
I think the only issue here might be the potential loss of parking of a couple of spaces, but there is on-street parking and metered parking in that area, and given that, I don't see an issue with this.
And I do believe they actually do have some private parking on the property as well.
Yeah, but the, I mean, I've driven by it, and it's the place that's set up for the outdoor seating, it has been that way. It was that way, it's not changed from last year. It's the same arrangement that was in place.
Have you worked out the issues with the neighbors about the fence, et cetera?
I believe that they, and I believe that they recently had repaired the fence
Okay.
in the rear.
Okay, fine. Then are there any other questions about approval of outside seating for Cognac Bistro? Seeing and hearing none, I move that we approve the application of Cognac Incorporated, doing business as Cognac Bistro, 455 Harvard Street, for outdoor seating for 16, which is to say 8 tables, 2 seats each. All in favor, please say aye. Selectman Daley?
Aye.
Selectman Benka?
Aye.
Selectman Waschinsky?
Aye.
Chair votes aye.
Thank you very much.
Are you not here for Cuckoo? Because in the past, Mr. Allen has represented.
No, not here with them tonight.
Okay.
I wonder,
Okay.
but they were set up before Cognac. So if they were given a time, it would have been before 8:30.
Right,
Well,
right.
then we will try to see if there's anyone else present. Is there anyone here from Night Moves? Aha! We do have someone. Now, this is a new and interesting concept, and I'm assuming that your name, that the name comes from playing a particular game, like maybe chess?
Yes, indeed.
Aha. So are you intending to have chess setups where people come in and advise on whether or not a pawn should go forward or sideways?
Yes, indeed. That will be a small portion of it. I'm Devin Trevelyan from Night Moves Cafe. The idea is that I myself was a nationally ranked player at some point, so that has drawn in my life a little bit. But and I've given lessons to the community. And building on that, we're going to open or hopefully a board games strategy, sort of a mix of everything. So it's not just chess, but it will be strategy games and Euro strategy games, and a place where I can build community and there's face-to-face interaction away from necessarily a computer screen.
Would there be room for Scrabble?
There definitely will be lots of room for Scrabble.
That's my game.
I'm a big Scrabble player.
Uh-huh, okay.
I can't play it, it makes me too tense.
So, just, why don't you give us a little information about your background, since this is a new venture and it's an unusual one? Just,
Sure,
you know,
of course.
What's your personal
I have
experience been?
been working in the community for about 5 years for Eureka Puzzles. It's a board game
know
and puzzle
about
store.
Eureka Puzzles, yes.
And more recently, in the past 2 years, more this year is probably the best year we've done an event. Moving out to do events, so birthday parties, bar mitzvahs, bat mitzvahs, weddings, where we teach board games and we sort of supply that. So this would sort of is an offshoot of, not an offshoot, but it's a working of that, where I'm taking my experience there. I took my experience of working for, I managed a cafe in college, as well as I worked for Ben & Jerry's for 7 years. So I have a good amount of experience in running events and have that experience for food service industry. And so it's kind of a marriage of those two ideas. It's a very unique concept. Yes, it's something that, you know, I think in the right light can really help build community, build a place where people can come and sit. It's quiet, it's not, and I'll just enjoy a nice atmosphere.
Sounds like you actually might allow or even encourage people to stay as opposed to look for turnover. Is that
That is
right?
actually correct. The business model serves as finding, you might even be like a reservation basis. It just kind of depends on the business.
Right,
on if people are banging down the door.
Selectman Daley.
I was just going to ask about that because, you know, most restaurants make their money from turning over the tables and so how are you going to make money if somebody's sitting there for a long, long time playing chess?
So
How many cups of coffee can one chess game sustain?
Or it's only speed chess.
Right. 5-minute games. No, there's, hopefully we're going to catch some early morning traffic. I plan to have some good coffee from like 7 to noon. And then from the hours of noon to 11 p.m., I'm hoping to either be on a reservation schedule, so people would pay. I found myself a couple years ago going to New Hampshire in a bar in New Hampshire with a couple of my friends, and we sat and played a board game. And we thought, wouldn't it be great if there was a place where we could actually do this and, you know, have a good atmosphere? Because it's kind of awkward, you know, like up in New Hampshire, just at a family base, people kind of were like, what are those guys doing? You know, so I kind of took that and I said, you know, it'd be great if, and it's also a market that's not necessarily measurable because, you know, it's not the bar crowd, it's not a bar scene. These are not people who are looking to go out and party. This is people who would like a quiet evening in, and so we sort of supply a neutral meeting ground that everybody can enjoy for a price. So people would pay by either a game session or, I mean, it's not, I don't want to be by the hour because I feel like that rushes people, and the idea here is, as you said, is not for, turnover is not the idea. Turnover is good, but definitely a reservation system that people would pay for that commodity.
Okay. You do understand that you can't have any betting?
Correct.
Okay.
Of course.
Betting.
Betting.
Wagers.
Wagers.
No wagers. No wagers.
No sheets. No
Right.
sheets and pillows.
Right. I think it's allowed for there to be friendly encouragement, but no
Yeah.
wagering. Yes, games of skill.
Of course.
Right. Okay, other questions from members of the board? So we now are being asked to approve a common victualler and an entertainment license. And I will say the entertainment license is certainly a somewhat unique one. I don't think I've ever seen anybody ask for board games before.
Need a license?
I don't know.
Well, it's also,
Maybe,
if
maybe.
there's a,
Do you want to come forward and give us some support there?
Andy Martineau, Economic Development
Thank you,
Planner
Andy.
for the town. It's something that I asked Patty Correa about because it was such a unique concept and we were undecided as to whether Devon would require an entertainment license. And that's where the games of skill versus games of chance come in. So Patty recommended that Devon get one, and since he'd be playing music, I think.
Yeah, I
in the
said radio
background,
or something,
It
yeah.
made sense to bundle it together.
Okay, then so be it. Any other questions before we take a vote? Then I move that we approve the application for Night Moves Cafe, Devon Trevilian owner, for a common liquor license at,
Yep, common
Oops,
victular.
sorry, common victular, how could I be so? Victular license at 1402 Beacon Street, and in addition, that we grant an entertainment license to include radio and board games. All in favor, please say aye. Selectman Daley?
Aye.
Selectman Benka?
Aye.
Selectman Waschinsky?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. And
Good luck.
we know that you're going through some renovations. What do you anticipate will be your opening?
as this is my first ever job dealing with contractors,
Aha,
I would like to say probably September 1st is what it's leaning towards.
you're hoping.
I'm hoping. I've got my fingers crossed.
Okay,
That
very
is-
good. Well, good luck, and we'll look forward to seeing how your board games and entrepreneurial activities work out.
Thank you very much.
Speaking
Good
as
luck.
someone who has dealt with contractors a few times in the past, my advice is keep cracking that whip.
Right, and be prepared for the possibility of a delay.
Thank you.
Just don't bet on it.
Right, no bets, no bets. Good luck. All right, so now do we have someone from Kayam by any chance?
Cuckoo?
Or Cuckoo? Don't see anybody from Cuckoo. You know, we could vote this, I think, without having anybody present.
It is, it's been approved by everybody.
Yeah. I mean, there's no opposition, and it seems to meet all the requirements, so.
Right.
Well, then, is there any reason, members of the board, that you have a reservation about going forward with approval of the outdoor seating for 4 seats at 2 tables for Cuckoo?
I'm
No?
willing to vote
No?
it.
All right.
DPW, police.
Everybody signed off on
is-
it, right.
Says it is not going to cause problems with the sidewalk.
Right. Okay, then I will move that we approve the application of Cuckoo Incorporated, holder of a common victualler license at 7 Station Street for outside seating to include 4 seats at 2 tables. All in favor, please say aye. Selectman Daley?
Aye.
Selectman Benka?
Aye.
Selectman Waschinsky?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. All right, that's that.
And now we have a public hearing, and that was apparently, people were notified it was 8:50.
We still have Cayenne.
That was supposedly 8:50. And that was the
Well, we
notice.
can't do a public hearing because it's set
It
for
is.
9
It's
o'clock.
noticed
Oh,
as
it
a
is,
public
it is,
hearing.
This is a public hearing at 9 o'clock, and this is a public hearing at 8:50, so we're sort of on hold again. Sorry, Adam, we'll just have to wait because we can't take it up before it was posted.
Do you have any
That's okay.
jokes you can tell us?
All right, Shall we then take a 10-minute break
Is-
and
Actually,
reconvene?
I
Take an
wonder if they-
8-minute break.
I wonder
and
if
be back
the,
at 8:50.
Is, that's not Mr. Srinivasan, is it?
Don't think so.
Who do you think that was?
I wondered if that was something we were missing.
I don't know, we
interviewee.
could ask him.
Yeah, let me go ask him.
They are.
We worked so hard to try to get this stuff scheduled.
If the four applicants were here, it would have taken about 40 minutes.
Yeah, this is a tough meeting for someone to watch on TV while they keep taking breaks.
zipping through.
2, 3, 4, 5 actually didn't weren't interviewed on the list. So.
You should tell, we can always take things light.
Yeah, we could never, right.
I will made a
We'll
note
talk
to do
about
that
that.
tomorrow.
We'll talk about that.
Well, but on the, on
We
the
still
public
can't
hearing.
take this up before, we've got to wait 7 minutes, or whatever's left up there.
The problem is we had 5 people on our list for interviews that didn't.
5 people who didn't come. If we'd continued, even if we'd been as, a little more efficient as we were as we got further and further down the list, if there were still 5 more names, we would have needed another.
So,
At the next meeting, how many are we?
I think about 10 or 11.
Wow.
Yeah, I thought Cayenne was not a public hearing, but it is because they're altering their premises.
Yeah.
Is this the one that's very controversial?
Um,
Andy Fisher and those guys are upset about? There was
18.
email stuff on
Yes,
that.
yes, Bartlett Griffin.
Yeah,
A young fellow who left was the son of Cognac Bistro's owner. He just wanted to find out what happened.
Oh,
So, and they're at 8:50, and there's nobody else out there.
Oh, all right.
So, 5 more minutes?
Yeah, 5 minutes, and then we can go ahead. Yes, this one, but apparently they decided they would accept the people with the 5 approved parking spaces, because that's who they legally marked.
Okay. And the neighbors are okay with that?
No, that's what I understood.
Okay. Saying this is the one, Andy Fisher and those guys were sending emails.
The building department has been there repeatedly, and apparently has said they have met the various requirements. And they're not continuing to have objections, which they did before. But do you look at the application, you'll see there's this very long Board of Appeals set of conditions. If you really want to kill time, you can read it. Well, what can I say?
Let me go back to the Hong Kong Cafe menu. So for those of you that just joined us, we have a hearing noticed for 8:50, and we can't start until we have it legally noticed. So we're killing a few minutes here, waiting
Actually, we're
waiting for the
taking a
time.
break
Yes.
until 8:50, when we can take up the next item on the calendar.
I've offered, if anyone has any jokes to tell, you're welcome to come forward.
Be careful.
Be careful what you wish for.
They have to be clean jokes, yeah.
Since photographs showing, what conditions are like today. I don't think they're wildly happy, but at least they're not technically. That's not it. To find them.
Were the notices sent out? That's Okay, so that's 8:50. That's 9. This is 9:10. The next one is 9:10. And the last one, hopefully, is also 9:10 and not 9:20, but these are all public hearings. 9:20. Item number 18, folks, is listed for 9:20.
Oh, damn.
There's
I
listed
mean,
at
darn.
10-minute,
There were 10-minute.
10-minute
intervals.
gaps.
Yeah.
So 8:59, 9:10, and 9:20.
Mel, would you get Patty on the phone so we could,
Get her on the phone then, because we're up here until 9:20.
So let it tune in.
yeah,
Somebody to share the pain.
that's right, she can wait it out with us.
So where did you see the times they were?
They're on the notices in the packet.
Oh, the notice in the packet.
And these are all public hearings,
Yeah,
so we're committed to those times.
I wish one of our restaurateurs would brought us some treats.
Well, why don't you guys tell us, bring us up to date on the B-Space Committee?
Well, there's not a whole lot new to talk about because the biggest event coming up is that the consultants are going to present on Monday night their research, all those contracts we signed that looked at existing possibilities for expansion on school property are going to be presented to the B-Space Committee. And that will be a very important collection of information, which will probably give the committee direction. Probably won't solve the problems, but it will give the committee direction, and will, perhaps, I guess, the clearest thing I can suggest is that it may eliminate some of the options. If it takes some things off the table, then it narrows. As I think Sergio commented that there were so many balls in the air, well, it might reduce the number of floating balls. But it will not be, well, it has to.
So what's the time frame? When are you thinking that you guys complete?
We're destined
In
to
a couple
give
weeks.
something to the school committee, I think, by August 16th because then they have to meet. And then they need to make a final decision and recommendation, which presumably will be done at their first meeting in September. So that's what's driving things.
It's 9:50. So
We are at 8:50. and
8:50.
we can move to item 15.
Cayenne. Okay. This one, I actually would love to have an explanation. I saw the plans, and it looked to me as though there is a physical area that had nothing in it that is now going to have seating, or did I just misread the plan?
Madam Chair, I believe you might have, you correctly read the plan the way it looks. Currently, the setup is on the left-hand portion, which I believe is the portion at the top of the page, is just restaurant seating, as is the right hand or the lower portion. What they're looking to do is to...
I think we should just say that
Oh,
we're
yeah,
talking about Cayenne Restaurant at
Right.
404
You
Harvard
can
Street.
start as if I didn't ask you that
Okay.
question. I just meant in the process, I would like to know more, so.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, my name is Adam Barnoski, Law Office of Robert Allen, 300 Washington Street, Brookline Village, here with Cayenne Inc., DBA Cayenne Restaurant, 404 Harvard Street, on a request to alter the licensed premises to include a bar with 13 seats and also to add 8 seats to the outside for outdoor seating. With me is Alex Z., who's the owner of Cayenne and has been for many years. It's a relatively straightforward request. We're not looking to actually increase seating outside. Currently seating increase seating inside. Currently, there is seating for 66. There's 43 in the, if you're facing the restaurant, 43 in the room to the left, and 23 seats in the room to the right, which is the room that you enter in. What they're looking to do is keep the room on the left at 43 seats, a full dining room, and then change the room that you walk into to be part dining room and construct a bar with 13 seats, leaving 13 seats as normal restaurant seating in that room. They've had an all-alcoholic beverage license at this location for many years, and they haven't really been able to fully utilize it. Currently, there is a whole lot of seating with not a lot of dynamics. We're looking to kind of change the dynamics of those two rooms. The outdoor patio seating, they're looking to have just to kind of go along with the very popular trend of neighbors and people in the community that like to eat outdoors and have requested this. Madam Chair, let me know if that's answered your question as far as the seating goes.
I think you've helped me, because the drawing that we have shows only half of the existing seating, and I was unclear as to what is current in the part where the bar is intended to be installed. Okay. So the total number of seats is unchanged, and the difference is to add bar seating, and I will just be reminding you, and I hope you know this, that we have in our alcoholic beverage regulations a requirement that food service accompanies beverage service. You can sit at the bar, but you must also eat at the bar, be able to eat at the bar. Okay, I think all of the approvals have been delivered. The one question was whether or not the renovation was complete and whether there have been final inspections. Has that been done or not?
I don't believe that the construction hasn't started yet.
Oh, you haven't started yet? Okay. All right, so then these are conditional approvals based on a final inspection, which you will have eventually.
Yes.
All right. Questions from members of the board about this proposed change? Yep, I'm letting you go first. Then this is a public hearing. Is there anyone present who wishes to speak either in favor or in opposition to the proposed changes at Kayam Restaurant at 404 Harvard Street? Seeing and hearing none, are there any questions from members of the board before we take a vote? Seeing and hearing none, I move that we approve the application of...
Let me ask a question, actually.
Please.
Is the same menu going to be served at the bar that is served in the rest of the restaurant?
It's going to be the same with the maybe a little bit cheaper for the light portion, the same food we have. It's going to be light portion, cheaper for the bar in case they come into bar, they have a cheaper food. So maybe I'm going to have a special price for the bar. They sit in the bars with a smaller portion.
Okay.
Small plates.
Small, yeah, small.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
Good.
All right. So, I move that we approve the application of Kayam Incorporated, holder of an all-kinds alcoholic beverage license and a common victualer's license at 404 Harvard Street, for alteration of the premises to include a 13-seat bar in the interior, unchanged total seating, and adding 8 seats outside. All in favor, please say aye. Selectman Daley?
Aye.
Selectman Benka?
Aye.
Selectman Waschinsky?
Aye.
Chair votes aye.
Thank you very much.
So when do you think the renovations will be completed?
As soon as we done with
I think, but how long is it going to take once we, in the inside?
inside, I think it takes around 2 weeks, not more than.
Oh, so probably by September you'll have completed. Okay.
And the space outside, the 8 seats outside, you're aware of the requirement for the passage on the sidewalk and the barrier, whether it's a chain or a fence or something. Good, okay. Very good.
Very good. Good luck.
Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, so unless I'm mistaken, we now have another posted public hearing for which we must wait, right?
2 minutes.
So, what's happening with the state budget, Mel?
My understanding is that the legislature is scheduling votes to override, governor's veto.
The governor vetoed a section, right? Not the,
I believe multiple sections,
oh.
and,
But this has to do with his transportation bill
well,
that he wanted?
but he
His
vetoed
preferred.
local aid, too.
Oh, with
Portions of
local aid.
Local aid and other, that would have, be funded overall. So my understanding is the legislature will be acting to override the vetoes. They've already passed the a separate transportation bill that will, I guess, be vetoed if it hasn't been already. So,
And what was the final, I know the Senate version was not as good for us on local aid as the House version. What was the
conference committee's version?
conference committee
Well,
version?
we knew it was not going to be what we had budgeted. It's about, I believe, $200,000 less, and that's what we'll have to deal with in the fall. And it'll be worse if the legislature doesn't override the governor's vetoes, but all indications are that they will.
What would the impact be of the governor's veto in addition to the $200,000 difference?
I don't have that number offhand, but
Okay.
it's probably another 100,000.
Wow, we need to override those vetoes.
I think we've been in touch with our elected representatives.
Okay, very good.
The Red Sox will win.
Oh, good.
3-1.
Well, it's 9. I think we can start up.